And then they start searching for your.
All right,
It doesn't.
I think I'm ready.
We need one of those folders.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's go ahead and call this board workshop together at 2:05. Let the record show that Carol, Bob, and Ed are here. The other two are on their way, be here in about 10 minutes. We can go ahead and get started on some of these workshop discussion or budget discussion items. Do you want to start, Laura, giving us anything on updates that I know we got?
Yes, and Stephen, feel free to chime in anytime with this. Stephen and I spent quite a bit of time together today, this morning, looking over the budget and trying to find ways to reduce, because there was definitely sticker shock when we got to the assessment portion of it. And between a sheet that Chelsea put together and Stephen and I going through the budget and looking at the various carry forwards that were available, quite a bit of interest that we've earned in those budget accounts, as well as some bonds that we were able to shift around from other projects that we know we're not going to get to. We were able to offset the entire cost of the construction of the admin building and the park for Pelican, Enterprise Fund, and the general fund. So
Well, Enterprise Fund, if you recall, a year ago, we took out a loan because we knew we had a shortfall.
Yes.
Each fund had a shortfall. And so a year ago, Pelican had said they were given the option, either take it from reserves or assess it. PPAC at the time said, we're gonna take it from reserves. The general fund, last year, we had moved some money around between bonds and interest earnings. So after re-verifying it again, Laura and Stephen, other than the enterprise fund, which we had that short-term loan, we took out 1.8 million. Between interest earnings and carry forward, nothing has to be assessed this year for the admin building and the park stuff. There are no additional costs that we anticipate.
But the enterprise stuff is remote from this.
Correct.
Correct.
We're just talking 001 and 002.
yes, things that'll show up on the tax bill.
Okay, so you gave me those numbers. What is the total dollar value? I came up with about 3.5, 3.6 million.
Give me a second, I had a computer failure here and I had to restart it. It's telling me I don't have.
For what?
internet.
What are you asking?
What is the total amount of, I went through what I thought was the capital that was not amortized, that was subject to this, which included the park, included the overrun of the building, and a couple of other things. I came up with about 3.6 million. Is that the same number you're coming up with?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay.
In other words, you're using this interest to offset the capital. How much is the total we're offsetting?
I
Is it-
Can't get to it right now, so I just.
You just list each one of them.
This does not have access to it, they're restricted. So
That's
give me a
what I want
minute
to do is
and-
mark it on my sheets here of where that's at. I want to say 3.5, 3.6 million.
Let me. All right, here we go. Back. It's only-
So how does that change things for the assessment?
So-
If we go to page 3 of the budget, the fiscal year 26 budget,
Page 3 or page 117. There's two different.
Look at version 2.
I'm looking at the amended version. If you click on budget discussion, that second one.
But I'm saying the one with the loans or the one with the
No.
bonds or the other.
The ones without the bonds in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's
If we
page
just-
117, I think.
Okay, or page 3 of the discussion item on the workshop. But anyway, if you go to the one
Chelsea?
where it says
Can you
what
pull
the
that up,
levy
Laura?
is going to be.
Yeah, I just, yeah.
It's the spreadsheet that shows the rate calculation.
Correct.
I think it's page 117.
How does what you just said
There it is.
change that?
Okay, so. What'll happen with this, I guess it's probably gonna be easier to show on this one. This 36.4% increase that we have here for Gateway, and then the 38 for the multifamily, that reduces dramatically. I'm just waiting to get to my sheet here.
Okay.
Well, aren't you saying that what we're dealing with is the fourth column? It's entitled General Funds 001 and
This-
002.
yeah, this right
Those are
here.
the numbers that are being impacted by this,
Correct. Which, when you get to the end,
which we need to see a revised sheet of this.
yep. All right, hang on, like that I can do. Sorry, guys.
Note that Flounder Walsh arrived at 2:11 PM.
Starbucks in hand.
That's the jar.
It could be something else, you know, the glass, you can have the door closed though.
You can open, Joe.
Thank you. So what we're talking about is going over the fact that the spreadsheet that showed the calculation of the assessment, we've come up with X number of millions of dollars that defers the need to have a capital issue this year, which, by my calculations, reduced this deal somewhere around $350. I don't know what the computer said, but my math said around 350, which drops that 15, what happened to it? That 1555 calculation. What the hell did you do?
Hang on.
New sheets on here.
Let's do this. That's
Yeah,
not-
it takes that 1558, that's the number we're talking about, this 1273, the 1163, all of those drop by whatever the share is to a lower number. That's what we're looking for. And then that added to the two pond bank deals and bonds shows that green line of the total assessment, which is now at 1870, which we're not going to do.
So ultimately, with this admin building, so for Pelican, PPAC said and the board said, use their reserves. Then this year, they said, hey, we want to assess. What we're telling you is between the interest earnings that you've accrued, there is no need to assess.
Well, wait a minute, but that's a decision for them.
Well, you and PPAC, which that will be, we'll tell them next week.
But the amount of money from Pelican that we were going to pull from reserves in the 25 year was 265. And now that has grown to 493. $493,637, correct? That's a question.
It's here on the sheet.
That's what it said on the sheets. So, okay, so my comment would be, and I'm not going to speak for PPAC, but if they choose to take it out of their reserves, no harm, no foul. But if they choose to leave it in the assessment, if they choose to pay for it in the assessment, again, no harm, no foul. That's their choice.
Sure.
Because what they're trying to do, I believe, is to make sure that the residents fully understand the impact of the admin building, the park, and all the other changes we made. If they take it out of reserves, it kind of hides that a little bit.
Understood.
Okay. I want to say that as much for my fellow board members. Is there anything
Yeah, I
else?
understand what you're saying. So you cranked the number yet?
This is, so this is the sheet that I was talking about that Stephen and I worked through. This was Chelsea started this, and then we went through and checked and refined and did whatever. So I tried to color code the things that go together. So the green was our original budget that we had when we did the bond issuance, the 3.62. And then if you look down here, the green, these three numbers add up to that. So the green ones go together. And then after all of these changes and everything in here, this was the new number for the admin building. So this blue number, these three numbers add up to that blue number. Then if you see down here, they're the same. This number and this number are the same.
So the cost of that, if I'm reading this right, the current cost is 6.8 million?
And
Well,
this,
Bob, our issue is not so much what the current cost is, it's what we had budgeted and what we were short. We were going to have it as either a capital outlay or a bond or cash. And what they have done is come up with cash. And my question is just, when we're all said and done, all of these things that we were short on that were capital outlay, what's the total of them? So how much cash do we have to have? And then better yet, where did it come from that wasn't here 2 weeks ago?
That's
Because I can't picture, and then Stephen can answer for himself. I just understand, why did we go through this and piss off 5,000 residents with a scare tactic of an $1,800 deal when it didn't need to happen?
Timing, truth be told, it's timing.
That 3 million didn't come up
No.
overnight.
No, it
Why
didn't,
didn't we use it before?
didn't have enough time to put it together. So between the new assessment methodology, working with Russ and Steven,
Okay, but where did that money, where was it at, or where did it come from that we're using it?
It's, the money from the interest is actually, so each of the bonds has a fund, they're 307, 308, 309.
So it's money that the bonds earn.
There, it's interest earnings on the bond fund. So
Okay,
we're
we
using
don't have-
money from the bonds, the bonds are generating more revenue by having interest. And that's where all of this interest earnings is coming from the
But
bonds.
the bonds don't have any escrow requirement or retainage requirements? We don't have any of that.
No,
So Steve, go ahead.
One other question would be, Stephen,
Michael,
Stephen, do you need to do an arbitrage calculation to make sure it's okay?
There will be an arbitrage calculation done on all of those bond accounts for every bond.
So we don't know if there will be any obligation after the arbitrage calculation.
That's correct. I mean, that's usually it's done on a 5-year term, meaning that you do it, and you wouldn't remit that. Even if we were to calculate it today and determine there's, $1,000 due, you wouldn't remit it until after 5 years. So the next 2, 3, 4, and 5 could have, an opposite arbitrage. So
Okay.
that's not something that we would retain right now.
Okay, thank you.
and we did confirm with Pedro when we started discussing this, that any interest earned for this can be used for those capital projects identified in the bond.
Okay,
So how did Pelican get $440,000? Is this interest earned for their laddered investments, or is this just something?
Between, correct me if I'm wrong, the bond, Stephen Bloom was smart with your guys' financing and investments, and so we have the interest earnings from the bond.
So that's our capital reserves earnings.
Stephen, can you confirm that? Is-
It's a kind of both. So your bonds are absolutely,
Way too much.
Sorry.
All right, I'm asking.
go ahead, Steve.
yeah, I was about to say, the bond money is absolutely earning interest just like anything else, as well as Chelsea mentioned, we do quite a bit of investing and CD ladders for Pelican Preserve. And
I understand all that, Stephen. My question is, that what you just referred to as bond earning, that is actually the earnings of our capital reserves, correct?
some of it would be, but some of it is directly on the money that's the proceeds from the 2023 bond. While it's sitting there, it is earning interest. And while the market rates are good, it's earning, some really good interest. So that's part of the number.
The amount of, just bear with me as I walk my brain through it. The amount of money in the 2023 bond that is attributable to Pelican, really kind of minor compared to the total.
That's
How
correct.
do you get so much money?
But keep in mind, yes, well, two pieces to that. The first piece is that money is in a separate trust account assigned to Pelican. So it's very simple and to look at that money and be able to pinpoint it. I mean, and again, it will not be used for anything else. So it is a no-brainer to put it towards this. The second part of your question is, yeah, the bulk of this is because of the CDs, because
Okay, I personally would like to see that separated. I don't want to see these mixed in with this at all. Keep that separate, because that's a totally separate issue. Any earnings we're getting that's associated 2013 bond, that's fair game for this.
Okay, so
So I'm going on from a different point of view. If we have about a $2.5 to $3 million overrun on the building. Why would we want to use interest earnings to debt finance that should be amortized?
That's true too.
That makes no
Put it over
sense.
20 years.
Why do I want to pay for it when the guy that moves in tomorrow gets it for free? That doesn't make sense. The building has got a life of at least 20, 30 years.
I'm with you all the
So
way.
why would I want to take interest that I've earned and generate that to offset debt?
It'd be 1 year offset. It's kind of
Yeah.
hiding the weeds. Let's get the real
Yes.
cost of what they
Get the
are.
real cost. If we've got $2.5 million or whatever the number is, just take and borrow the money and we get that building, whatever the building is, less what down payment we had to have for the bond, then we borrow the rest for 20, 25, 30 years, whatever we can get. That way, the people that pay for it, they come here 10 years from now, are paying for it. Otherwise, they come in, they get it for free. That's not fair.
Because to look at this and see Gateway's going to get 10 grand and Pelican's 440, that's way out of proportion.
It just, we're going way too fast, way too fast. We're not taking all into consideration all the scenarios. We got caught with our pants down because we underestimated a whole bunch of stuff. Now, the good news is we got this money. The thing is let's just don't spend it like drunk sailors.
Correct.
Let's invest it the way we should. And Steve, you're our guy on that. You should be telling us, I would think, would have told us or told staff that, hey, don't put it on that, borrow the money and use that as the first annual payment of the P&I.
So Ed, to your point, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think for the exercise for today, what we were trying to do is show that those assessments, as part of the bigger discussion, could be lowered, for the high water mark. None of that means we necessarily have to follow every one of these, the roadmap you have here. It's just showing you an example. I don't disagree with you. That's a larger discussion in terms of we've talked about it internally a little bit, but we haven't, reached out to any banks to look at the differential, how much you earn in interest, how much you then pay, your P&I payments, that type of stuff. But that does not have to be, resolved today. But I don't disagree that we could do that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the high water mark. I just don't want it to be a flood.
Well,
We've
the other question I
never
had,
done this kind of a number before.
the
Never.
other question I had is when I was digging a little into the numbers, I was under the impression that we kind of looked at our capital spending program in the future, and for 26, this reflects fully implemented. No, it's putting 100% of what we are thinking of for future capital. That's not part of this? I don't know where I got that from. Okay.
That's, okay. I was of the understanding that what we talked about at the last meeting was that if we're looking at $4 million a year for 5 years for capital in the 5-year period, 20 million bucks. That 4 million, how much of that were we going to discuss that we wanted to put aside on the deal? As I recall, the number was 20%, correct?
For this year, for 26?
For 26, yeah.
20%.
So in other words, we're saying we're kicking the can down the road for 80%, we're
Right,
funding
right.
20. That gives us the option to do that the next year, next year, next year. If you take that scenario and let's just say arbitrarily that it's $20 million over 5 years, 4 million per year. 4 million a year at somewhere in the neighborhood of 6% for principal and interest payment, about $240,000. And if you're going to do 20% of that, that would be $48,000. Okay,
Does this number cover the full 4 million?
that's where I'm headed. That's where I'm headed. Of that 20 million that we had identified, and that number could be up or down. I thought that's what I read in the report. 20 million for the next 5 years. Are we addressing any reservation of funds for it in this proposal?
Not in this right here, no, but it is in the budget. This sheet that we're looking at here, right here, only addresses the admin building and the park.
Okay, where's the other items that make up that figure? Where are they at? And how are they being reserved? Because if you take out the park and you take out the building, you took out a big chunk of the 20
Yeah,
million.
the overwhelming majority.
They are split up.
And forget about enterprise, I'm not talking about.
No,
Enterprise.
that's,
Enterprise totally separate.
He asked where they are.
thanks, Johnny.
So we didn't have any for landscape coming up. There was nothing on the capital sheet specifically for landscaping.
Well,
Under
look at it this
waterway
way.
management,
Go to your capital sheet. On the capital sheet for the next 5 years, it's showing on here. Highlight the items that make up the component that was the 20 million.
It's everything from 27 to, I don't think I put it in here. This is the summary.
I'm just trying, there's no totals on this, this makes it difficult. I'm just trying to, is 20 the correct number we're dealing with, or is that a figment of my imagination? But I remember seeing something
It
that
is
was 20 million.
20%. So what it is I took the total of all of the projects, the sheet doesn't have a summary.
Don't do utilities.
From 27,
Yeah, don't do utilities.
okay, it doesn't matter, it's the same problem. From 27 through 31, so not coming next year, but the 5 years after that, I added up all of the projects that are in here that are not bonds, so anything that was capital. Let me pull up a different sheet that actually shows that on there. And I divided it by 5, and that's because that's what you said you want to do with the 20%.
Well, that's, we said 5 years.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I just took the total of all of the capital projects from fiscal 27 through fiscal 31, added them up, and then divided it by 5. And that was
What's
the
that come out to
20%.
be?
Let her pull up that sheet.
But that's future, that doesn't 2026.
But see, what some of the issues are, and Laura and I had a discussion about this, is like vehicles. Those are not, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are not in here. Those vehicles, just like you and I, we go to a deal, we buy a car, when we find debt finance it 5 years. It's going to be used for 5 years. Now, if you're going to go out and trade the thing every other year, that might not be a real wise decision. But we don't do that. All of our equipment, as far as I'm concerned, everything that's on that list that has a service life of over 3 to 5 years should be amortized. Why would we want to pay cash for it up front?
So
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
And all the vehicles are 8 years.
Well, we
Could
did,
be, yeah.
we did that last year, because if you didn't want to do that, so we took an F-150, it was $50,000, we said it had an 8-year life, we divided that by 50,000 by the 8 years, so you put a little bit aside each year, and that's how we got what our totals were going to be. Last year, you said you did not like that method, because it was a big number.
But last year, we didn't know we were $4 million short on 2 projects. That's the difference.
Okay, so here.
It doesn't
So, for
make any difference to me.
example-
I'm just trying to figure out what is our strategy of going ahead. I cannot see on capital expenses, especially those that vehicles are argumentative, but everything else that has a service life, why do we want to pay cash up front? And let the people that come here into the community over the next 10 years get it for free? That's not fair.
So here's where I got my calculations from. This is the Public Works capital project sheet, which is in your board book. I just blew it up. So this particular table is not included in your stuff, but it's on the individual tab. So for example, for roads, this total here I took the average of these projects right here. So it's divided by 5, so it's 20%. So then for roads, it would be $172,100.
Per year.
Per year for the next 5 years to
Okay,
cover all these
that
projects.
makes sense.
And then this one, same thing, 12,200. I did the same thing for Parks and Rec. Theirs actually came out to be 175. Or no, they're just
So-
here.
All of them added. That's the question. What are all of the 001 and 002 items added that cover our capital costs for the next 5 years? If we say it's 10 million, 20 million, whatever the number is, divided by 5, if we make the decision, we're going to pay 20% of it, what is 20%? Is it 170,000?
Well, I don't know that applies for OT. They're kind of, they can,
Well, it's
they can
a
make that,
percentage,
I'm with you.
yeah.
But keep them separate for this discussion.
Okay.
Look at 01, look at 02.
But the issue is, what is the number we're dealing with? Because that's, if we've got that covered in here, very possibly, if we would do debt retirement and amortize those big ticket items, we would have enough of that interest left over to help offset that the next 4 years instead of having to raise rates for assessment. That's what I would like to do. I would like to be able to, if we, knowing now that we have that cash available, how do we best use that to instead of having sticker shock like we got this year with everybody when jumping from $1,100 to $1,800?
The total of that you guys have in reserve in this budget in the 001 is $551,000.
Per year?
Well, if you keep the same for the, well, it'll change because we look forward 5 years each year. So for right now, yes, that would be this fiscal 26 is 20% of the next 5 years.
And
And
just
that's the 551,000.
Yes.
Okay.
It's broken up across three areas.
So if you took that,
So this is a specific line item for reserves.
Yes, it's right,
It's not money that you just
Nope,
didn't
it's right
spend
here.
or whatever.
nope, it's right here, capital project reserves.
what would be three items? One would be admin, one would be.
And
Parks
there,
Rec,
yeah, this
would
one is
be-
under Public Works, and then there's one under Waterway. Waterway is here, and then, Parks and Rec is here.
So
So
the participants that pay for it, pay based upon what silo it's coming out of.
that's why I broke it out that way instead of doing it like we did before, just the general capital projects reserve. We did like Pelican has, and under each of the categories, there is a capital reserve line for
So
each of them.
the 551 is the combination of the three areas.
Correct.
So would 551 be accurate for 2026? Or would it be more like 750?
I don't understand.
If we would take this interest money that's available and we amortize, for example, the building of the park, which means we're not having to come up with 3 million in cash. Now, all we do is got to come up with the amortized amount for a year, which is what Bob, you said, about 200,000, 250, something like that. That means we still got one chunk of interest left over. How far does that interest go out in paying to avoid assessments?
Of the
Future,
of what we would have on hand
yes.
from the earnings.
If
So we
don't
basically take
spend-
that earnings
But
If
and
we don't spend-
amortize,
But as we spend,
amortize
the
that
earnings
against the
gonna decline.
amortization
Correct.
of the assets.
Yeah, in other words,
But
So
use
to
that,
cancel those out.
use that to offset the
But as we're spending
amortizing
it
amount.
down, the amount drops.
Do what now?
Right. I mean, it would be a little more
As we're-
complex calculation.
Yeah, as we're moving to the future, the amount that we're earning keeps depleting.
Yeah.
Well, that depends upon your capital reserve study. If your capital reserve study is 4 million every year, it's
Well, then
only.
Then you're okay.
You would hope that we start leveling that thing off after 5 years, but we need to look at that. But we pretty well said at the last meeting, and I totally agree with it. Let's don't look beyond 5 years. I think we're making a mistake. You're really guessing when you start to go beyond that. But we should be able to get this down pretty tight on 5 years. And if we've got this kind of interest money available, let's use it to, for the next 5 years, help offset any increase that would have been necessary to pay for capital.
And just to be clear, the replacement life cycle of a particular asset could be longer than 5 years. We document that inventory and what that life cycle is.
Yeah.
However, we were only projecting out 5 years to repair, replace that.
But-
And just so we're clear, one quick second.
That's all right.
And just so we're clear, what the methodology proposal is we go through those assets, we amortize over 5 years. We use the revenue generated from the bonds or the
The interest.
and we offset that amortization through that revenue funding. So basically, we're
Exactly.
we're running a kind of zero.
Yeah, but the one facet we're not looking at here is that we have other capital plans for each of those next 5 years too. Like this year, we're looking at, what, $750,000 for the amphitheater.
But that should have, all should be in here.
Well,
That should all be in here, but to go back to it, keep in mind, this is only 20%.
Right.
Each year of those next
Right.
5 years.
There's gonna
we
be
still gotta
impacts
come
to
up
assess-
with-
yeah.
We're still gonna have an impact of the other 80%.
Yeah, and if we look at it, there's things that are funded year over year. What I think I'll try to do is figure out what is that reasonable number that we feel is the assessment. And as a project falls off, new ones will come on, but we don't want to go above, whatever the percentage benchmark is for us. Let's say 30 or 40% would be, okay, that's ridiculous. We try to stay within either single or low double digits whenever possible. Zero would be optimal, but, it's really difficult in today's environment. But this is where we have to be really acute in what we're doing, is making sure that we are, like we do, go through the prioritization, go through the list, because we may have to get,
Knowing
take
that.
the pencil out with the eraser and start cutting back in some areas.
Knowing that that interest is there and is fixed and not encumbered any other way is a big step. We get past that,
It's only encumbered to the extent that the interest has to follow the principal. I think that's what
So
Steve
the more you
said.
draw upon principal, the less interest you get.
But, yeah, and again, if the principal is in there because it's bond proceeds for a building, then it has to follow that particular use, generally.
Steve, is there anything wrong with this or anything that is erroneous about this concept?
He's muted.
And I do have one more question. So we've got earned income from from the bonds, and that's for this year. We will continue to have that year over year.
Well, less as
Yeah,
you
yeah.
draw.
I mean, but,
Draw it
but
down.
still have it.
Exactly, but what I mean is, the good news is we would treat this as, this revenue source will fund amortization of these other items for the next 5 years. Next year,
The,
Reevaluate.
the interest earned from, it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but the interest earned from the bond proceeds have to be spent back on those projects.
That gets back to the interest follows the principal.
Yes,
It
so
can't be
you
used
can't
for-
you can't earn $900,000 off the 2023 bond series and go build an amphitheater at the fun park. You can't use that money.
But you
It has to
can't-
stay within.
But you can take that money and tie it to the principal and interest.
Which is the
payments
other-
of what you've already.
within that
borrowed.
bond GL or whatever, and I think that's where,
Use
yeah,
that as your payment
Well,
for the next.
well, the fact that
years.
we've got that building and that park that are basically the tail wagging the dog, there is our sink for the money to have compliance.
As
So I don't
long
think
as
we've
we
got
keep
that
the
big-
funds separate, O1, O2, general.
But you do have to watch, if you, like Chelsea said, if you start introducing new things, then you're
So
not gonna be able to do
here's
that.
the issue. So, oh, I'm sorry, Carol, go ahead. I know you had a question.
So how did the things change from what we had in that, in the very first thing of the 1,500 for Gateway, and how did these numbers change that?
Because what we showed here is the use of carry, you didn't have to assess the shortfall. We have carry forward and interest earnings, cash flow basically, to address the shortfall. And that's how it went down drastically.
and so what we're saying now is, it's more financially responsible for us to not take that, which was the original plan, pull things, amortize, and then use that source of fund.
Right. So how does that change the numbers?
So that's what I wanted to mention, is if you're looking to do a 20-year term on this, we'd have to go back and look at the master trust indenture, because that number, we'd have to look at the administrative category to see if we could do another bond series to take out the shortfall that we're talking about here within that line item. And I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't know that we.
Who makes that call? Is that a Russ deal or is that a
Pedro,
Stephen
we
deal?
work with Pedro on that. And again, anything with a maturity of more than 5 years, you have to have it be validated or part of the validation process. So to the extent that it's already in there, and we can,
So
that becomes a question.
That would mean a new bond series, not only for Pelican, but also for the district, which would incur bond counsel. We'd have to go through the public hearing process for the supplemental
timeframe.
trust. We'd have to have an engineer draft an engineer's report.
We have said, Chelsea, for several times, that when we had that overrun, we didn't know this yesterday. We've known this for over a year. We knew we had the overrun. It was my understanding that that was going to be borrowed. Wow, this is the first, it sounds like that we never thought about that we were just gonna pay cash for it. Where did that idea come from?
I wasn't clear that we were borrowing the difference.
Well, I think from what I remember is,
Well, then
how we got there is,
then you were looking
there's
at
a,
having a sticker shock then. You
No,
knew it was gonna happen.
no, we had, I knew months ago we had interest earnings that we were gonna be able to use.
and carryover, and.
We had all the projects that we didn't do for the park stuff that you guys voted on a year ago, the slash pad and things like that we knew we had carried forward that was gonna be earmarked for this.
I mean, to me, how we even got to the point where we felt like these improvements were feasible is through the various funding sources and the carryover and some of the other areas. We're like, okay, we can self-fund this through these areas. Now we're at a point where we have real numbers, we have alternative solutions, and maybe borrowing was a possibility, but we had the potential cash on hand.
It's still a possibility.
Yeah, so now we're just looking at, here's an alternative, which might make more sense if you are to amortize, because it floats that debt across a longer period, which impacts, the residents and assessments maybe in a more favorable light, which makes sense. So now it's just, there's an alternate solution. We need to vet that out and see what that looks like.
How many
Ed,
interest,
are you looking to do this alternate solution before we put out the high water mark?
I would like to, because I don't know about your phones over there, but my phone rang off the hook the last 3 days. I thought I was gonna have to get guard at the house, keep it.
It happens every year. It doesn't matter what the number is.
No one called.
It doesn't matter what the number is. If it's not
Thank you for
zero,
asking.
your phones are gonna ring off the hook. That's just the way it goes.
I was-
No, I'm just saying, if we follow the approach that you're outlining, is it your intention that be the high water mark and not what we have presented to us today?
As I understand it, Stephen can crunch this number to let us know going this alternative, what the ramifications, and keep in mind, we're only dealing with one number and one number only. That's that $1,558 number. 1,558 is the number that's gonna drop.
Well,
The
I
rest
thought
of it's
it
bond.
affected Pelican also.
Oh, it's gonna carry through, but
so
it's
much lesser
it's
extent.
not a much lesser deal than ours.
Right.
Yes, to answer your question, I'd like to see at least what is the number that is right now at 1,800 that would be a high water mark if we would take this option. Is it 1,200? Is it 1,300? That's issue one. Then the second issue that I'm getting hit by from people in my community is that take away the reserve. Take away the reserve issue. The 20%, 50%, whatever the number is. Take away the reserve so that this is flying basically apples to apples from last year. What was the increase? You were $1,100 last year, $1,190.38 to be exact. What was it without the reserve going to be this year?
And what's the purpose of that?
Just
They wanted to know,
FYI,
well, typically we've been running 6, 8, 10%. We know we've got some things that came into play. We had the operation maintenance costs associated with both the building and the park. And we only put partial in. I think it was about $150,000.
Yes.
So what would have created a need that the change would have been more
But you're
than?
still talking about, we will still fund the reserve.
yeah, so you have to put it in there, because
Yeah.
you can just put it FYI, like
I mean,
on top,
But
like.
instead of
it's funny.
reserving
You
100%, you just
What we're trying to
No,
do,
he wants
guys.
he wants to remove it altogether,
Just
but
for the
then it
number.
wouldn't be, but then it wouldn't be, but you can't send that out, and your high water mark wouldn't be, it wouldn't be, the high water
I'm
mark
with you,
is
I'm with you.
required that,
I'm
so
with
it
you,
can be
but-
an FYI, like explaining them, this would be, in addition, the increase is gonna be only 9%, however, this time
We're adding reserves.
we're adding reserves, so then there's an increase a little bit more,
Thank
but
you.
I think it's an explanation that we need, but I don't think we send it out without it, because statute wouldn't allow us to, because then how our mark later on would
Yeah.
be more, because we have to add reserves.
Because it's basically, here's what the dinner costs. Okay, great. Here's, when the bill comes, here's all
Yeah.
the service fees, and it wasn't $12, it was
Exactly.
$20.
What do they call it at the club? Plus, plus.
Yeah, plus.
Plus, plus.
So I think the explanation, one second, I think the explanation would be good. So you can see what is our actual operating year over year, and the philosophy around the reserve, baking that in, because that benefits the community just over time and should stop larger hits from occurring down the road.
And that is the key. That is exactly what it's doing. It's
Well,
stopping the larger hits down
I'm
the road.
completely supportive of this, but I want to make sure that when we regenerate the numbers that we looked at earlier, that we differentiate between
Bond.
01, 02,
Yeah.
and enterprise, and whether we're talking bond income versus capital reserve. That we
Completely understand.
identify all of it.
Well, Bob, the one thing you could look at right now is that
You're saying if you earned interest on the reserves you already have in the bank.
Right.
You want that interest to stay in those
Well,
reserves.
I want feedback to opine on that, but yes, I think that's what
But if you earned interest on
the bond,
money that you didn't spend or bond interest or whatever,
then I don't care.
then that in your opinion,
Yeah.
that could be used
Yeah.
to offset that?
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah, I
understand.
just want to make sure we
So I think-
differentiate.
So I think the issue is that can Stephen, between now and the time we have our meeting where we put this out for everybody, can we recalculate that's in that green column? What the number would be if we make the assumption that we're going to debt finance, amortize those overrun costs on the.
Through a bond.
On the
That
bond,
I agree.
yes. And then know what that hit is, and at this point in time, do it with and without the 20% reserve calculation of bottle. I think you came up with what, 200,000 ballpark, somewhere in that number. Throw that in then on top to see what that impact is. My calculation said it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 to $60 additional. I want to know if that's correct. If it is, that's not a big ticket item. $200 or $300 is a big ticket item.
And I
So
still
Stephen
don't
can
have-
run that calculation, then if we go to
And
our.
how long will it take him to do that?
Should be able to do it immediately.
So, a couple things, because you've asked a lot. Let me just summarize this really quick. So it's your intent to use instead of using the interest earnings to pay for the project, you want to use that money to pay for P&I payments moving forward. As far
an
as you
alternate
can,
solution.
as far as you can stretch it,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Correct. Now, there's a shortfall of the admin building in the park. 14% Pelican, 59% enterprise fund, 27% general fund. If that is not, I know it's not in the Pelican bond because we only borrowed the minimum, and I guarantee we did the same.
We didn't borrow anything.
For enterprise.
I guarantee we did the same for the general fund. So that means there is not an opportunity through the bond validation to take this money out. We could do a 5-year, unless we can change the master trust indenture, which I'm not privy to.
We'd have to try to get a supplemental trust indenture. The question is for Pedro whether or not we need any bondholder consent to modify that.
But to modify it to increase the dollar amount for the administrative
No.
category,
I don't believe so.
yeah,
I'll
that's,
go back.
that's
We
the problem.
validated a not to exceed number,
Correct,
and I can't remember what that not to exceed number is.
within each category.
Well, no, just overall, we validated a number for the project. It was X dollars. I don't
But you
think
were
that,
asking if you can move them around as long as the total.
but I'm not
doesn't
sure if
Yeah.
the bond series that
I
was
don't think
issued
so.
was
I
the
think
entire
we
amount
asked
that was
about it
validated.
before, and then
I
we
need to check the validation judgment and try to do that because you can validate up here and then only borrow down here. I think that's what happened.
We know we can do at least a 5-year loan on the shortfall, on the Pelican side and on the Gateway side.
Here's what I think to simplify things. We have this concept. Staff go vet out what the solution path is going to look like. 'Cause we can sit up here and, we're not all experts in this area. So I think that what is clear is we want to look at amortizing and then also paying through revenue sources, alternative to just a full spin of rollover and some of the other things. So go re-solution that and come back, and it could be X, Y, and Z, bond this or 5-year this, whatever, but I think you understand what our
Intent,
philosophy
yes.
is.
So what I was going to suggest at the end of the regular session was to continue that meeting to a time and date certain next week. That way, that way we can iron out some of, any of the comments that came up from today. We don't have to have it approved, we have to have it approved 60 days prior to it.
We need to have it, again, the statute says the manager proposes the budget, presents it to the board no later than June 15th, which is June 13th, because it's on Friday. And then it has to be sent to the governmental bodies 60 days prior to the public hearing. That's going to be set. The public hearing is currently
So
set
what's the
for
magic day?
August 21st. Right now, we're thinking that it would be June 20th to be on the safe side.
So next week, we're looking at Tuesday afternoon or Thursday morning.
To be on the safe side would
Well,
be
it's
next
June
week.
20th. That says that we could do it before we meet the next meeting.
No.
June 19th.
Statutory is June 15th, so you have to have it done by next
We
Friday.
want to be on the safe side, next week is the safer.
So June 13th is when we need to
That's the
continue
latest, yeah.
At the latest.
and
June 13th.
and determine the high
Which is
water.
Friday.
That's correct.
Yes,
And again,
A week Friday.
A week from
I
Friday.
think what we're trying to do now is the high water mark might be a little too high for us to tolerate. So let's come up with what we think is realistic, either, based on, it it could be half of this, half of that, or we could go one way, but we feel like we need to at least do one more due diligence step.
Well, I'd like to have a verification first, that we can't go beyond that 5 years, because I bring the question, Tony, for you. We bid this thing and we budgeted 3.6 million or whatever the number was. There had to be a contingency in there, the bids could come in over, that we would be borrowing not only the bid, but we'd be borrowing not only the original bid, but the contingency or the over.
Max of the contingency.
What's different? The only difference is it's just a bigger number.
What I need to check with Pedro is, number one, what the amount was validated, the maximum amount. And then we have the amount that the actually issued the bond series and a certain dollar amount, and what was, and peg down the projects under.
Can't
the
we
bonds.
shuffle them? We've already done that. We've shuffled money from one project to another that we said we weren't going to do.
No, it's
So
like
can we do that with
we have a
this?
certain amount of latitude.
We
Now,
need that answer,
yeah, well, that's something we'll talk with Pedro about.
because 5 years on the bond, while that is better than nothing, that's still gonna be a salty number.
Well, you can always borrow 5 years, do another validation, take that out.
Which is
If
what
we
we
had
had.
to.
Which
So what
is-
we've done
Basically,
before.
would walk in 5 years.
We've done that before, the district has had short-term borrowing with the lending institution, and then
So
engage in a validation and take that out longer term.
who's gonna chase this question to whether we can go the 20 years?
I am.
Pedro and Chelsea and me, yes.
Yes.
And Stephen, we volunteer Stephen also. Right, Stephen?
Volunteers for me.
Is he still there?
Steven?
Hey, Laura.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, anything that we've said here that you see a vulnerability, anything?
No, nothing. But I do want to reiterate exactly what Chelsea said and a couple others. If the money is in a bond account for a project, that interest's got to follow that project until, we have a bond document that says otherwise.
We don't have a problem with that. With the large value and the share that building and park is, that's our safety net.
So,
We've
Ed,
got plenty of things.
so I understand what you're looking for is on this table that Laura has up here, is that interest earnings would basically clear out the Series 2023 debt service fund lines, because that would pay the P&I, and we would not assess P&I for next year to our residents,
That's fine.
That's all right.
or as
Yeah, well,
long as we
well,
can
we're-
stretch,
That's what we have.
as far as we can stretch.
What we're looking for is a new, nice, pink chartreuse column, replacing that green with different numbers.
Fair
It's like 8, 7, 6, and 5 aren't the numbers I'm thinking.
Chelsea, to say what you just said again, looking at this.
So
We talking
what,
the 2023 debt?
yep, so what, from my understanding, is we have, let's just say we have $900,000 in interest earnings from the bond. Instead of using that money, we use it to pay the debt P&I payment for next year. So that in essence would drop those numbers in that column to zero.
So then we'd have this same problem a year from now, unless we again have those earnings available to us. So it's a one-time Band-Aid for 1 year.
But you can calculate pretty easy, Bob, once you get an idea of what this is and whether this is a 5-year or 20-year bond, you can have a pretty good idea of what that amortization is going to be on a yearly basis. And then how fast that $2 or $3 billion is going to deplete. You can do that real fast.
Okay.
But there's a big difference between it being a 5-year versus a 20-year schedule. It'll really go fast if it's 5 years.
Well, and if you choose, my suggestion, if you choose to go down the path of a bond series, we took out a 5-year loan on the enterprise fund for this building. Why would we not look at a similar bond series for the enterprise fund and do it over 20 years? So, something to
And
contemplate.
it's a much easier validation process because we're using the rates, fees, and charges from the enterprise.
Just bring those options back. I mean,
So you're looking at next Friday, the 13th.
No, ma'am. We're looking at Thursday
The 12th.
morning.
On the 12th.
Yes,
Yes.
What time?
You tell me.
I'm here at 7:30.
9.
Thursday, the 12th.
yeah,
Is Thursday the 12th at 9 a.m.
yeah, that works.
work?
What's
So-
on the 7:30? Everybody mind getting up early?
You do?
You want to take my kids to
I'm
school?
here at 7:30.
I'll give the day off.
I will on the way up here.
Actually, they will be out of
What did we
school.
say? 9 o'clock.
That-
Well, I don't have my calendar, but I don't know what's going on, but
9 AM?
I usually have things at 9 and 10, there's things over at television.
On
We have a
Thursday.
president's meeting next week, you know?
No,
Okay, then
no,
I'm
they
good.
they took June off.
9 AM,
Remember,
okay.
June, July, August, they have one.
Okay, so at your 3 o'clock session, we will not convene. We will continue to Thursday, next Thursday, June 12th at 9 AM.
That should only be like about an hour meeting, correct?
I hope so.
I hope so.
All right.
What,
In Thursday, your
Okay,
day,
and you're
You can
gonna
play
have
on
it
Thursday?
in,
for the boys?
you're gonna have these options available so we could vote at that time on the high water mark. That's the
Correct.
purpose.
Yes.
That's the drop dead day to do
Yes.
that, yeah.
So
We're gonna
what,
publish it.
Well, no, the drop dead date is on the 20th.
No, it's the 13th. It has to be done by the 15th of June. We have to
Which
have
is
it
Sunday.
published by the 20th.
well, the statute says the manager has to provide a budget to the board by the 15th. And then we conduct a public hearing and then you transmit the proposed approved budget for purposes of the adoption hearing to local governments, not less than 60 days prior to the budget hearing. But out of abundance of caution, I suggest that this all take place next Thursday.
Thursday, I'll
So we
be
don't
there.
bump up against any other time frame.
12.
12,
Thursday the
Thursday the
12th.
12th, 9 o'clock.
so
We
there,
can do that.
Here,
yes. So what we'll do at the 3 o'clock session, when we go back into budget discussions, we do have some other issues that we will need answered from you, like town lakes
I have a list.
and Stony Brook.
Okay.
That those two, depending on your answer, we will have to go back and make those adjustments, which is why we suggested the continuation of the meeting, so.
But those are all negative, aren't they? They're all negative issues. They're not increasing issues.
Depends on the decision you make.
Depends on where your property is.
Well, the key is the quickest you can get these answers and get the calculations back. I don't want to really come in here at 9 o'clock next Thursday morning
Look at it.
and find out that 1870 is 1865.
We'll do our best, at least by next Wednesday.
Right.
Laura's out Friday and Monday, but we'll work with Stephen Bloom and get it done.
So you think we'll see it on Wednesday, the 11th,
Yes, ma'am.
before the 12th?
A whole day before.
Okay.
A whole day before.
We're gonna do our best.
You could- you
I was looking for a Monday, but
You could
okay.
get your estate affairs taken care of.
I guess.
Do you wanna,
Okay.
At 5:03.
I'll be here.
it was time to publish Ed's address.
Okay, right.
Oh, no, but.
Okay, so we're good, and we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, I'm gonna mute us.
Thank you. All right, 3:06, let's all stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A Jeopardy contestant did not know that in 1957, we added the two words, under God.
I knew that.
I couldn't believe that they didn't know that.
I guarantee my kids don't know that.
All right, so we'll go ahead and have roll call. In attendance, we have Doug, Bob, Flavia, Ed, and Carol. I need a motion for approval of the final agenda.
So made.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any public comment, Chelsea? I mean, Flora, sorry. Or Chelsea. Chelsea can do it.
I have two. Looks like they're both in the agenda. First one is Marty Mantonfeld regarding access to gateway and location of the new building. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes. I will start the timer after you announce who you are.
Marty Mantonfeld, Brino Drive. So on Memorial Day, Monday, the Pelican Preserve,
People, association, general.
I'm having a senior moment.
Flag, brigade flags.
No, the farmer's market. It's canceled because we had a Veterans Memorial ceremony. So I figured, no big deal. I'll just go over to the one at Gateway because they have it on Fridays right over here at the soccer fields. Well, you know what? Gateway is really not accessible. So I find it easier to walk across the street at Tree Line and go to Winn-Dixie than to come all the way over here for a farmer's market at Gateway. So your assessment methodology is really flawed because you're not really accessible. Because if you were, okay, your new building could be located at the corner of Tree Line and Colonial. We have plenty of commercial space over there, but if you were all over there, you wouldn't be accessible to Gateway. So I find your assessment methodology therefore flawed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, next is Vince LaFredo regarding resolution 2025-11 and gateway/Lee County data.
Hello, everybody. Vince LaFredo, 9871 Bluestone, Stony Brook. Going through the methodology report that's been passed in a resolution and several pieces of wording in it I have questions about. Number one, the page 309, chapter 190, the definition of services specifically for benefits of its residents, meaning Gateway. And then on page 288, the wording is, these Parks and Rec facilities are anticipated to be used by residents of Gateway Services. In addition, news came out last year after the voting last November concerning the general obligation bond up to $75 million for Lee County. And of course, the announcement came that a significant part of this was going to be for Parks and Recreation. So in essence, we will be paying taxes towards that general obligation bond to Lee County, and now we have a Parks and Rec here at Gateway. And we're tied into that bond. So my question on the wording, as far as the resolution, I have questions about. The other part in the methodology was the fact that we know that Stony Brook was to take over the roads this year. All of this has been done. We had a lot of words said, a lot of legal action. My question is, why were terms of the Stony Brook roadways included in this methodology? One, the fact is that after this fiscal year, it should be in the responsibility of Stony Brook. So I've had questions on that because I think the terminology was, I want to get this right, soft gate, which is something I wasn't sure of. That's the roads behind the gate at the entrance, which was noted for Pelican and for Stony Brook. and how we could measure it in fiscal '26 if Stony Brook has ownership of the roads and not Gateway. That was all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Nope, I don't have any other ones. Okay, Tony, you want to touch on Vince's last question regarding why were we required to have Stony Brook numbers in prior to?
Well, right. Well, no, as we're going through the budget process, it becomes a timing issue. And the goal is, come heck or high water, that the road will be conveyed to the Stony Brook Master Association by September 30th, 2025. Just a matter of trying to wrap up that pre-litigation settlement agreement in order to have that come to fruition. So that's not yet achieved. It's in WCI's hands. Lennar, Charles Mann is working with their in-house counsel to try to move that along for us. But the district and the association are all walking together. But for purposes of setting potentially the high water mark, that number may need to be in there. Well, yeah, or in the alternative, if it's taken out, then we've talked about how that happens. I think we can talk about that when we talk about the budget.
Well, it's safe to err that it's in,
Yes.
rather than having it out and then finding out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then again, the question becomes, and this becomes part of the methodology, I guess the baseline is Stony, from the standpoint. And the board may want to say, well, we anticipate us not owning it. We can still have a high water mark now for the assessments for Stony Brook for the road. But as far as the baseline, maybe go to another baseline, roadway network for the baseline. Anticipating it ultimately will be owned by Stony Brook before the new fiscal year starts, if that makes sense. It's kind of two moving parts.
Any questions for them? Nothing else? No. Local achievements and recognition, do you have anything? Advice committees and items to report, have anything? All right, so we'll move to approval of minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who was the second? Sorry, we're two at the same time.
That was,
Three of us.
Everybody was talking. I'll pick Ed since he's next to Carol.
all right. Consent agenda items.
I'd like to at least have a discussion of B.
Okay, so we're gonna move it out.
I'd make a motion to approve A and C and B for discussion.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve consent agenda items A and C.
Tony's
Second.
David, I don't know what it is, but I'll-
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right,
Question,
we'll go ahead and do the.
And just a question on C that we just approved, but is that the last one thing that we have with community association?
It's the last we know of.
For landscaping,
Yes.
yes, aeration is a whole different can of worms.
Right,
That should be the last landscape.
but I'm not going into irrigation or anything similar to it, but just for landscaping, we have all the easements that we need now, right?
We
So-
think we do, yes.
Okay,
We hope so.
good.
And there may be some further considerations in the future with regard to some conservation areas, 50 and 52 and all that. Right now, this is everything we know.
Okay.
And I'll work with Mark and Danzig to wrap up those documents, and attach exhibits and get that recorded.
oh, if you talk about on B on the village?
Yes.
Yeah, what I was gonna ask on that, I don't have any problem with any of the documents, but attached to it is something, Laura, can you go to that page?
Yep.
That threw me for a loop, it's, storm sewers in Champions Green, which doesn't have anything to do with anything. What is that in the villas section?
Where is
for?
that?
Keep going. There's about 6 pages of, looks like, yeah, here you go. Storm sewers in Champions Green. This doesn't have anything to do with the villas at all.
To me,
I don't know what that was
I
there
don't know
for.
either.
But my question was, keep scrolling, Laura, please. There's a picture.
Yeah, I'm not planning on using a picture for any exhibits, Ed.
Well, I understand, but this is,
Wrong.
it brings up, one more, please. Next one, there you go. This is Champions Green right in front. What I don't understand is, because we just had an issue over there at Champions Green, I was of the understanding that Basin 4 storm sewers were all totally done. And this implies that we've got to come back and says work needed, see report. I don't know what report they're referring to, but I thought every storm sewer in Basin 4 was done, had been cleaned, was over with, kaput, the whole 9 yards. And this very yellow one that's on the angle under the word champions is one that's problematic. If that's not clean,
I'll follow up.
yeah, I
Those
don't
from a
know,
year
but my
ago.
real question was, this doesn't have anything to do with Tony, with our villas document.
Correct, it's a 2-year-old map, like Chelsea said.
You lost internet? Yeah, I did.
Like Chelsea mentioned, I'm sorry, it's a 2-year-old report.
I'm
So
sorry?
it's a 2-year-old report, so we'll update that with Tetra Tech, I think.
Yeah,
And also, it does not,
everything else that we were to do for the villas, to my knowledge, is done.
Correct.
So I would then go back and make the motion to approve item B.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
now I will get with Mark Adamczyk to wrap everything up.
To wrap it up.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and move to, not district engineer, we don't have anything. Admin agenda items.
Oh, under district
I'm
engineer,
trying to,
I did see big equipment out there at the Commons Park today, and they were actually moving earth. They were moving up and down and actually moving earth. First time.
They've been out there for about a month. They're done with the clearing and grubbing, and they're getting ready to.
Yesterday was just piles of dirt.
Oh, no, there's,
I went
Did
yesterday.
you see the truck with the furniture?
No.
And I saw
But
some kind of a dwelling for the contractors.
yeah, it's a construction trailer.
Construction trailer.
We posted aerials, their OAK is taking pictures monthly, and we're posting the aerials that they send us, so the community can see progress.
So when did they actually start?
They're starting foundation work in the next 2 weeks, digging
No.
and
When
then,
did they actually start?
oh,
Stakeout?
a month
About a
ago?
month ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
A month ago.
And our estimated time of being done is still?
April, until I get an updated schedule from them in the next 2 days. But April is still the deadline.
Of 26.
Yes, ma'am. Ready for administrative agenda?
yes, sir.
So 11A, Ed, do you want to share on this?
Yeah, what it is Hammock Cove, in their agreement of transfer of assets back in 2015, one of the items they included was the fence that went around the west side. You got a picture there?
Yeah.
Around the west side and the south side of their property. Unbeknownst to us, when we were doing it, we didn't catch it, but the fence was extended down into the LME. Yeah, if you can see on that picture, it says end of proposed fence. That's where it was supposed to have ended, where in actuality, it went out to that 25, where it's written in the deal, 25-foot extension to the stone. That's where it was actually located. Well, the contractor came in, did the lake bank work, had to take all that fence out. Now we're getting ready to put it back in. And in order to put it back in, we need to prepare an EUA. And the EUA is only allowing it to go to the point of the fabric. And so we've had to change the letter that we had written to be, I believe, 25 from that endpoint, whereas in reality, it's now to the fabric, which is only about 12 feet, I believe.
Yeah, so there are 3 fences, as part of this pond bank restoration project, there were 3 fences from 3 different entities on this pond. So we're trying to make things right and approach each of these entities and say, hey, you need to fill out this easement use agreement. If you want the fence to continue, pay the necessary fee. In this instance, Hammock Cove Gateway Greens Masters Association they paid the $500 fee. They're requesting the waiver of it. That is why it is on administrative items instead of consent.
And I'm going to ask that the waiver be extended to all 3 of the entities being Gateway Greens Community Association, Royal Greens Community Association, and the Club at Gateway. That all three of them, the $500 be waived.
Staff recommends the approval of this easement use agreement, but the waiver of the fee is up to the board.
And we haven't waived anything before, right?
The only one you waived was the
tree.
Gentleman
That's
At the
something
hidden
different, not
limits.
this. And that's because we're in the middle of, I'm not sure what exactly.
So I just need your direction on their request for the waiver of the $500.
Like I said, I'd make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Ed for a waiver of the fee for the 3 entities. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Pass it on.
All right, so you approved the easement use agreement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it was, okay, you want a clarification because you looked at me that way?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion that Ed was made was to waive the $500,
Fee
and that's what
for
I.
all 3 entities.
Yes, and I voted no, you voted no.
And I voted
I
no.
voted no. So motion did not pass. Ed's gonna pass along that information, that's what he said.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I don't know if that's what you're looking for, clarification, but I just gave it to you.
Ed and Doug voted yes, and then the other 3 voted no. Got it, okay.
To waive the fee.
The fee, but then.
The fee.
We haven't had a
Yes.
motion
Your
yet
motion is
on.
up.
Exactly.
the
Yes, I'll make that
Easement
motion for, so I'll make a motion to allow the easement for the 3 properties that we just talked about.
Well, I don't think the other 2 have submitted an EUA yet.
Not yet, just approve this one.
Only
Okay,
us.
so
have
my
done
motion
that.
is for just the one that we have.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right,
We communicated the other ones, or either you
yeah,
let them know
the
this.
staff is working with them, so we'll make sure that we notify them.
I tried to let the new superintendent know, and he had no clue what I was talking
We
about.
emailed him,
Do what?
we emailed him. All right, ready for B?
Yes.
This is the one that I alluded to earlier. So we need direction regarding town lakes. I did approach, thank you, Ed, for the contact, Vince Sardo. He was the last known director of the property owners, the defunct Property Owners Association, and he is unwilling to sign an updated quitclaim deed.
Not willing?
He is not willing to sign it.
Oh.
His statement, he sent me an email that he signed it prior to the POA dissolving, and there was money from the POA to the district. I have not confirmed that, but in his mind, it was resolved 10 plus years ago. Ultimately, we have about $100,000, this kind of ties into budget, we have about $100,000 that over the years we've collected from those handful of property owners. We've got a couple options, I'll kind of turn it over to Tony and let him explain those options.
Yeah, the first question is whether or not the original quitclaim deed was delivered to the district or not. We're not able to ascertain that. I have an email.
Well, we know the answer to that. It was.
Well,
It was held up by our manager.
Well, we don't know that. That's exactly what he's
If I can, what I have is an email that was sent by Vince Sardo to Bill Knight saying attached is a quitclaim deed by the email. So that's not the original document. I mean, at the time, it was a copy or attached. So the first question is, was the original delivered to the district? And if it was, and we can validate that and find it, the district can, when the deed is delivered, it has to be accepted by the grantee, like in this case, the district, or it's not valid. You can't just record a deed or give a deed and say, here, you now own the property. Acceptance is one of 2 ways. One is by act, like the board would accept the deed, that's an act, or by action, that the board would take steps to indicate that it does control and own that property by maintenance, repair, reconstruction. So over the years, because the district has, Chelsea, we've worked on those roads in the past, to your knowledge.
I'm not aware of
If the district has and spent money.
We have, I think when Brian Bush was here, we did restriping on that.
Yeah, so to that extent, then the
That's
action.
prior to you.
Yeah, the action would then qualify, arguably, if the deed was in fact delivered to the district. And so that's like step number 1, do we know if it was actually delivered? If it wasn't hand-delivered, the original, and the district doesn't have it, the alternative would be, if Mr. Sardo does not want to sign a new quitclaim deed, and there was one other little wrinkle too, is to file a quiet title action utilizing the copy of the deed that we have, since we're on the original. And that was the intent. And the question is, who would you have to name as party? It would be that we, the district, are assuring that we are the owners. We want a quiet title, and anybody else, we probably have to name all the property owners in Town Lakes and say, we're naming you because you may have an interest in the road, you may have an interest in the road, et cetera. And get a court to say a quiet title in the district. We would name WCI also, and they would probably sign stipulations saying, have that, we don't care. But that's the alternative. Unless we find that original deed, then we'd have to go through the quiet title.
Or option three,
Which was much easier if he signed it again, right?
well, option three is spend down the money and stop.
But that really doesn't solve the problem. The answer is that Vince's argument is real simple. I signed it, I gave it to Bill Knight. We know Bill Knight had it because Bill Knight sent a letter, I believe, to Tony indicating, hey, I think I screwed up.
That was on an email. That was that email chain.
But the issue is that that's an acknowledgement that at least he knew about it.
Yes.
The issue is Vince's position is, I signed it once, why do I need to sign it again? Now, if what Tony has said was in the past to me, was that it had errors in it or deficiencies, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So that means that whether we find it or not, we still got to correct it.
So then if he did, then why didn't we just fix the,
I
can we explain that to Vince?
spoke to him for over 30 minutes trying to explain that there were errors, that there were inconsistencies. We have a new one that was drafted by legal
Have
that's been
you spoken
approved.
with him, because you have a relationship with him, after knowing that there are errors, he's not willing?
He's pissed. He's just pissed.
But
He
Vince does
felt,
not help
he
us.
felt like that he was betrayed 17 years ago, that this was all over with, should have never happened, somebody dropped the ball.
So
And I
this-
think
so
that
then
did
at this
happen.
point, he doesn't want to fix it now? I understand he's pissed, but.
That was what I asked him to do.
Okay.
Please sign this now and get it corrected and get this over with.
I asked the same thing and he said he said he was unwilling to, that just use the one from 10, 15 years ago. And I had him follow up with an email saying he was unwilling to. I even had him print it out. I said, I can meet you, or you can come to the office, and he was unwilling to do that.
We have copies of it, but we do not have the original.
That's correct. I think that's the problem. And again, Florida, when land is, when you deed property to someone, it does not have to be recorded to affect the transfer of title. But it does put the whole world on notice that you are now the owner of the
Well,
property. So if we had the original deed, even if it was not recorded, we could still then notify the property appraiser, hey, we had the original deed in our office. It may not be in a condition to record today because the entity is now dissolved. This happened before it was dissolved. But then we can get the property appraiser to change the records. But the key is if we can find that original deed.
Well, the copy that you have is a copy,
Correct. Well,
and the copy that I have that I got from Vince is a copy. So the issue is, and his claim was that he turned it over to Bill Knight. Now, the question is, in this place, where is, it could be
Okay,
anywhere.
so Tony, the option that Chelsea was talking about, just spending down the money, don't levy anything more and don't do anything more, is that
Yeah.
as legal as all the stuff with the title?
Either that, or you have to refund the money back to the property owners. That's the choice. Either spend it down to, because the district has easements in there for utilities and also ingress and egress for purpose, I think. Not this one. I don't know, one of them does, one doesn't. But we have utilities, so it's appropriate to improve the roadway to be able to access the district facilities in that property.
Okay, but then, let's say that we go back, let's say we find, let's just say we find the deed. It still has errors and it still needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Well, we can, if we want to,
To
we
me,
can,
it's like,
if we want
finding it
to.
doesn't really help us because there's still errors, and if we are aware of errors, then we have to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't understand why Vince is so, like, here's the paper, we found it,
Did
there's
you
errors,
explain to
let's do it
Vince what the
again.
errors were? He asked me, and I said, I don't know what they are.
I didn't
Well, it's a
know.
very strange legal description. The acknowledgement is very awkward and fine. I'm
So
not
maybe
sure
we can
it's
give it another try, maybe,
We need an answer because this affects the budget, so we can either use,
well, we're gonna recontinue this meeting, so maybe we can reach out to Vince again, so me or you can explain in detail.
Yeah, I don't know if he
the
wants to
errors.
talk to me. He doesn't like me. I can
Okay,
talk to
would
emails.
you be willing, will you talk,
Yeah, I-
will you talk to Tony, Tony will give you all the information what the orders are.
here,
You contact Vince,
Let's-
and then we'll follow back on Thursday at 9
Let's do
a.m.
this.
just quit claim these. Come sign them.
If the.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, here's my deal. What's the difference between this one and the one that Vince signed?
That's what Tony's gonna tell you.
Okay, because he asked me, what are the differences and what are the errors? I said, I do not know.
So
Well,
Tony,
first of all, it references an exhibit A, it's not, well, he references a plat. And again, it's, and the acknowledgement is just not an appropriate acknowledgement. It says sworn to and subscribed before me, December 12th, 2007, the party of the first part and second part appeared Vincent Sardo.
it's not really
Definitely.
clear.
But the issue is, this is corrected and takes care of all errors.
Yes, Yes,
Okay.
you're part of that. You will get a signature.
We have plenty of notaries in the office. I'll even come to the house if you can get
Yeah,
them.
and then it goes on to say that he
that's what
acknowledged
it-
to me that she, they executed the same in his or their authorized capacities, and that by his or their signature on the instrument, the persons upon behalf of which the persons acted executed the instrument.
So
I think we have a clear shot of, again, Ed having a conversation with Tony, getting all the information so he can relay that to Vince and explain, like, even if we found it, we still needed it.
One of the other things that Vince mentioned, which I tend to agree with him, is the property owners have changed probably tenfold in there, and that they may be unaware of this situation, and that by doing a quiet title that Tony was suggesting, that would at least give them the transparency of them turning, knowing.
If we do what?
A quiet title action.
Quiet title.
But knowing about it, but the money stays with the property, not with whoever pays, so it's pointless.
Yeah, they're not
It's only
gonna,
gonna piss them off, like, oh, thanks for having this money, but I'm never gonna be able to have the money. Thanks for letting me know. The money stays with the property, it doesn't stay with whoever had the property at that time. So I think, to me, I would disagree with that. I would like,
and what we want to do is to use that money to benefit the property
yeah.
and get that over with.
because
And then not assess those people
yeah,
any
it's
longer.
tied to the property, so it's not tied to, that's just my two
I
cents.
just can't picture
So
that.
I guess what really we need direction from the board as a whole, is this the direction you want to proceed with getting this? And if not, we'll need to make a decision next Thursday.
We got 7
for the
days to
budget.
try to get it done.
Okay, so we'll let you know in 7 days?
Hopefully you'll be convincing, more convincing than
I'll
me.
take that getting done.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so do you need any money for the
Can you take those cookies?
But knowing what the errors were will
I
help,
think that
because
will
I
help.
couldn't explain that.
And
to
that's what I
him.
think. I think if we explain that, even if we found that there were still errors. I
It was the
think that-
acknowledgement of the legal description is very awkward. It's very unusual.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ed, for taking on that.
Thank you.
Next. Back to budget.
See,
Well, I thought we were gonna table this
Yeah.
until the meeting on the 12th,
we're not gonna do anything.
because I don't want to vote
Oh,
on the
okay, yeah,
high,
no, yeah.
I don't want to vote on the
Right.
high water mark as it's being presented today.
Well, the other thing I thought is, are there any other issues that are in the budget that we need to talk about? We know we got the issue with the capital reserve and that, how we're gonna spend that money in the bond. Are there any other
Yes.
things that we need answers? You need answers for on it.
You're
Yes.
gonna go,
Laura has a list.
I have,
Let's start with the easy one. We just talked about town lakes.
yes. Are we going to assess for them or not? Or do you want to just leave the reserves in there and just use that for whatever?
we'll let you know
expenses?
Thursday.
Well,
Right.
we have to revise all of our tables if you're gonna
I
assess.
see no reason
so.
to assess them anything to only complicate and make this worse.
We have $98,000.
We got $98,000.
Yeah, this is more than enough to
Yeah.
cover the landscaping costs, so.
Okay, so we will,
I would suggest we not assess.
Not assessed, thank you.
thank you. Number one, done.
Thank you.
Not
All right.
assessed.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right, my next one is Stony Brook, same. If you want to assess them for this year, we need to update all of our tables, recalculate all the road things.
So two things. We had the resolution that said it should have been done by today. It's not gonna happen. I think we all, like Tony said earlier, we're all in agreement. It's just a matter of getting the attorneys to sit down and agree on the documents and get it ironed out. Now, it's two different issues. So the budget as a whole is impacted if you keep Stony Brook in, because that affects your roadway baseline assessment. We can choose not to assess Stony Brook at all and just use their reserves, which they're trying to spend down, but you're not assessing anything for next year's. If this falls through,
And
Well, they'll get the-
the base will no longer be, I think what I was talking about, the end of base will no longer be used as Stony Brook base, it'll be Gateway base.
The version that you have in front of you is not using Stony Brook, it's using Gateway. We assumed
Oh,
that
you
there
already
would
did
be
that,
no
okay,
assessment.
so that's good, okay, at least.
And worst case scenario, we could special assess them after the fact.
but I don't.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying, there is a.
Tony, do you see anything that's standing in the way, other than getting the attorneys to do the work, that this thing's gonna fall
I
apart?
guess two things. One is, I think Stony Brook and their council, district and their council are all on board as to the, I'll call it 99% of the documents involved. In the standpoint, Charles Mann had initial comments on it, they weren't major. And he's talking with in-house counsel at WCI and Lennar to try to get them, their input and suggestions. So that's really the internal issue. And they were busy doing the end of the quarter kind of analysis. They were tied up. So,
I don't see any need.
I'm sorry?
I don't see a point
I
in
don't see
passing
any,
it.
I don't see
Oh, no,
a point.
again, it's a matter, I think it's going to be achieved.
And like Doug says, I think we might should don't assess, and if it comes to it, hopefully not.
We can either use their reserves, or we special assess, or we. I think it's too much work.
I'm optimistic, number one. Number two.
I know that this.
And if the board decides at some point in time they would need to, and go back and special assess, it would be a direct bill and not in the tax bill.
So selfishly, work-wise, I would rather
No,
not assess,
self-assess, yeah.
but it is a risk.
Yes.
I think it's a manageable risk.
Okay.
Do you
I'm
guys
fine
mind
with
if I ask, Vince, who's the, oh, JT, right? You're still on the board, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
That's why I'm
There's
here.
nobody.
So I am confident, we've had meetings, we're continuing to have meetings with their HOA on how they're gonna spend down these dollars by September 30th. Like Tony said, it's just a matter of getting the attorneys on the same page to sign the dang document.
Everybody seems to be on the same page. It's like usual, we have the attorneys trying to get the work done. So I don't see it as
Okay,
success.
so then we will zero out the Stony Brook 004 fund for assessments for high water mark. Okay? All right, what else is on the list?
The capital reserves. We talked about, the $551,000. I need to, if you don't decide today, that's something that we definitely have to finalize next week at the meeting. Are we going to assess? Are we not going to assess? And I need to know, so I can either remove that, change it, up, put it down, take it out, doesn't matter, we just need to decide. Doesn't,
Why
Since
can't,
it hasn't been done in the past, why don't we just hold off on that for another year? And I know that's kicking the can down the road, but it's hard to compare apples and apples when you throw in something like this.
You're talking about reserve?
that doesn't bother me so much, but we don't have the answer how we're gonna do it.
Is that what you're
That's
talking
the problem. I can go on.
In other words, take out the 551,000 from all the different things, and let's just operate next year,
So we know
and
next,
then look down the road.
I wouldn't, as much as I don't like kicking the can down the road, I think that's probably the cleanest with everything else that we're juggling right now.
but if we don't, and then we get a surprise between now and next Thursday, we could be really up the creek without a paddle, trying to get an answer.
Last year we do have in the fiscal 25 budget, we have $279,000 for fixed asset reserve.
That you did.
That's in there right now?
It's in this current year's budget in fiscal 25.
So you did have.
Is that a part of the 551 or is it in addition?
No, 551 is for fiscal 26.
Okay.
For
So-
fiscal 25.
So how about we match that? How about we do, so then we come in and.
Then you can do apples and apples?
Yeah, so how about we match, we do
So you have-
279,000 instead of the.
I'll have to
51.
divvy it up then.
But you have to decide how you want to divvy that up between the silos.
Do you want me just to do it as a percentage of what we're
Prorated.
going to assess?
Just prorated.
Yeah, just like how we did it last year.
Where I
Whatever the
can't,
total
I
is,
always
prorated.
did it silos. So,
You put it on back. You put it, you siloed it on back.
okay, well, I can take it as a percentage of like what you were gonna put, take the total of percentage of total, I'll just take
Well,
that percentage.
you'll be okay with
So I
that?
have, okay,
I think so, right?
That sounds reasonable.
Reasonable.
that's easy to do.
Alright. Okay, so that's the direction.
That was good. That was easy.
Who's taking, oh, right, and I'm here. I am a room.
All right. And then the last thing, we failed to discuss it at the last meeting, because Carol wasn't here to remind me.
I actually did it.
You tasked staff with doing a survey of what is most important to them, and regarding FRS and salary compensation and PTO and benefits, et cetera. So Laura has that information. Okay. So we sent out a small survey to the staff. I think 18 of them responded. It was an anonymous survey. We did get feedback from them. Laura did talk to them prior to sending it out to kind of preface with, this is what you anticipate. From a staff perspective, obviously, they prefer money in their pocket rather than retirement in the long run. It was a close match between the two. She's got the survey results that she'll share. We did not take into account FRS or any salary range sliding of the scale as part of this budget. If you so chose to, or is also surprised, no surprise, has those numbers.
I have a spreadsheet.
That we can show you and plug in if you want to do either of those options or none of those
So they
options.
prefer the money.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see that. They ask what they want, so.
So it was close. You can see salary and insurance benefits and retirement benefits were darn near.
Just because if they have a salary, they can have more options with insurance.
Yep,
So you
so
couldn't do the other way around.
the question was to prioritize current benefits in the order most important to you, starting with most important, and then like salary, insurance, retirement, and PTO. We had 18 people respond. I don't know who,
Yeah,
it's about half, not quite, a little over half. I don't know who did or didn't because everybody got the same link. So I truly have no idea who responded.
Okay, so, but you already added 4% into the budget.
But that's standard every year. That's our normal merit increases that we have. That's
They
not
wanted an adjustment.
But that's not base adjustment.
correct.
That's just merit.
Yes.
Okay, one-time bonuses.
No, we do it every year. We have merit, well,
Or up to 4%.
yeah, up to 4% of their base salary. So it's just, it's.
Okay, so they can get a raise every year
Yes.
on their base.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up within the
4%.
salary, within the salary caps that we have set.
We actually had that happen already, right?
Somebody hit the cap?
Somebody hit the cap, so while you can get up to 4%, and even you exceed your expectations, but you met that cap, you're not gonna get
There's
anything.
3 or 4 people that are there.
So then
now.
so here we are, an employee that's exceeding expectations, because he's capped, we can,
But what they do, how we rewrote the manual was, let's say you cap out $50,000. If whatever gets you to that 50, you're gonna get to that 50,000 and the rest is gonna be a one-time bonus. It's not gonna be a base added to your base every year. So you're gonna stay at that $50,000 every year.
and the leftover is a
The
bonus,
leftover is just a bonus.
if you get it.
If you
yes.
get it, yeah. So I asked here, because this was something, and this is pretty much the same answer that I got the last time that I asked this question, which was 2 years ago, two years ago. If we were gonna subsidize it, what would you do? And the majority of people said that I wouldn't add anybody. So you had asked if it was benefit, and I said, well, that's what they had said, and it's still saying. Or they wanted half. So that was either not at all or half. And then I did add this question here. I didn't give a ton of information. This was really all I got. I just said that we're looking at making the substantial investment to move to FRS. That everyone would be eligible, including part-time. If we were to make the move and you choose to participate, you have to contribute 3% of your salary. The majority of them did say yes. I learned a lot about the FRS after this survey went out. So basically they said yes, some said maybe, it depends on, some said no, and some were like, I don't care, whatever, so.
A lot wanted more information. Very good questions that they were asking. But after we discussed internally, if FRS is a viable option, I think that we should kick the can down the road and consider it. Get more information, maybe even have them come in, do a dog and pony show. That way staff have the opportunity to ask all the questions. That is a large investment. I think our staff are worth it, but right now with everything else, that I feel like that would be a lot. I would rather do some due diligence on the FRS program, because it is maxed out at 3%.
You have to contribute 3%, can't be more, can't be less, you have to contribute 3% as from an employee standpoint.
So that could
We
be,
talk about match.
No, what the employee has, the employee
That's what I mean, the employee
contribution.
puts in.
Yeah, that you can't do less or more, you can only do 3%.
so like right now, we both do more, we would.
There's
only
quite a few
limit
people
it.
who do more, but they would actually, you know, they would be able to do that. I did ask about the vesting because that was something that came up as far as like the 8 years, 1 year thing. Because we have a retirement plan, or our retirement savings that we have right now is invested immediately from day one. Whenever, if and when we switch to FRS, the counting starts from that day. So you can't purchase any prior service. So like I've been here for 5 years, none of my 5 years count.
You would start at day one.
Yes, everyone starts at day one
And whatever you
because our
had
other
previously
plan.
would stay vested in that sub, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
So the alternative was looking back at the salary, adjusting salaries. We did a major overhaul, if you recall, maybe 2 years ago, and we were finally competitive with the market. Right now, we're still competing, we still have open positions. So Laura did some numbers, as always.
So some of these are numbers that you have seen before, like right now our cost, we match anywhere from 3 to 5% depending on how long the employees have been here. And our annual cost to the employer is about $55,000, so it's not a large cost. If we were to move to the FRS, our estimated cost would be about $286,000 a year, so that would be an increase of $231,000 for retirement benefits. I put everyone on the sheet. If we gave everybody a $2 an hour raise, it would, the total amount would be $137,000. So this is the difference between what we're paying for retirement and this number. So it would
Wait, you have,
Okay, 54,000 and the
Yeah, so
37.
the impact would be 80.
hold on one second.
This is for 18.
You're saying two,
That'd be 4,000 times 18, 72,000, so it's pretty close.
why do you have 2 an hour, 4 an hour, and not just?
Well,
percentage
it's
increase?
because it would be to increase the pay ranges by $2 an hour. So like if your pay range is 20 to 24, we would make it 20 to 26. Or if we went from 20 to 28, if we raised the maximum pay range by either $2 an hour or
For each
$4
of
an hour.
the.
So the first two lines are related to retirement. The next lines are all related to salary changes.
There is percentage stuff.
Yes, the set percentages are there. So I started with flat rates. If we moved the maximum of every pay range by $2 an hour, this would be the impact. If we move the maximum pay range for everyone by $4 an hour, this would be the thing. If we gave everybody a 5% increase in their maximum range, this would be the impact. If I did it 8%, it would be here, 10% here, 12% here.
But this is also challenging because you're looking at flat increases across the board. But I don't know, and I could find out easily, but if you look at where we're at, where are we most competitive, where do we need to be more competitive? Like what roles are we challenged by the county, the city? And most of those are going to be probably, well, it would be hourly and more mid-level managers, so it's probably across the board. But, if what I'm hearing you is we're on average right now. So we're competitive from a compensation perspective. But are we also competitive with hours, with benefits, is this, on a scale from 1 to 10, are we an 8 on a great place to work? Look at tenures, and that's another thing we have to look. So there's a lot of contributing factors. I personally, I would love to do the FRS. If we had 70% of our positions where either they come in from an environment that has FRS, and that's really all we care about, because if they leave to go somewhere, that impacts us negatively. But I don't know if that's the case. I know that there's some positions, but I don't think if we look at in totality, because we have to do this all or none, right?
Yes.
So if we look at in totality, how many of our employees, or what positions are potentially impacted from individuals transitioning in? I think that was one of the areas that we said, hey, like you said, from the beach. Some people won't go if there's not an FRS because they're already contributing to it. But if you look at the amount that we spend and the actual benefit, cash on hand is not the benefit here. It's down the road, and it'll be 8 years for them to vest. What is our average tenure at the district? If it is not greater than 8, then it's a negative return for most. And if you really think about it, people are going to say, well, that's great, but the average tenure is, for most roles, are 3 to 5 years, or 3.5, or 20. I don't even know what it is.
Probably 3 to 5 is
Yeah,
fair.
so I love the concept, but I would much rather have the ability to be more competitive on wages, even sign-on bonuses, or things of that nature, to have more capital for us to really attract and retain than to contribute to FRS. And I would look on the medical side
I'd be
too.
looking
The
at-
benefits might be,
We did.
We did.
I know you guys did, and that's difficult too, because
Do you have a,
Family
do
versus
you have an hourly, like, I'm more inclining to the percentage versus the hour? The
So
set,
we
the set amount?
recommend the percentage
Yeah,
because.
Yes.
I think the percentage is something.
Because like $2 an hour for a person in the field versus $2 an hour for someone like me or Chelsea is,
Two different things,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so Doug, if I would like to be looking at this with the pay range, the 5, 8, 10, or 12, what is market these days? I
Well,
really have no,
it varies.
Hold on.
I think over the last, so 3% is historical. Most people would increase 3%. Now, you saw a couple of years ago where that increase got as high as 10%. Because coming out of COVID, people needed to hire.
Right.
So people were leaving and getting, actually, it was upwards almost 20% at some point.
yeah, but today,
But today,
Get me back to today.
just today,
I'd say 5% is probably a good area, but we don't necessarily have to add, we don't know if 5% is the number across the board. You have to evaluate each area and each role, right? So if it was me, if I
but
was,
this would be the pay range that would increase
What-
5%.
what I would say
It could
is
go up.
what we approve is like what we did a couple of years ago. We approved a bucket of dollars to be allocated towards merit or other things. So we don't necessarily say we're going to guarantee everyone gets a 5% increase across the board. We say that the board has allocated a certain dollar amount to be assessed by staff and then allocated in certain areas. I think everyone will get an increase, which is a plus, and I think we can all agree if we're going to do it, let's do it across the board. But there are some areas that we will need that might need 7% increases. Others might need 3% because we're already comparable to what the market is.
You're not talking about salary, you're talking about the range itself.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah,
we're talking
that's a
about,
big deal.
yeah, we're
a
talking
big
about a
difference.
different thing though.
Okay, I would like to recommend 8%.
That we set aside the dollars for 8%, or are you saying you want everyone to have an 8% increase?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like, two different things.
Yeah,
I
when you
would say everybody, everybody
Which one do I want to say, Doug?
So can I try to?
Yeah.
Everybody would not get 8%.
Right,
We would-
up to.
No,
No.
you would increase the
increase the
range,
range.
It's
the
the
range
range.
8%.
So
Those that are currently bumping the cap.
That's
Right,
what
so,
you're doing.
so.
I don't think you put a
It's up
percentage
to, it's up to, because you may only get $1 because you're already within that cap.
Right.
So that's
So
what I'm saying,
it's-
it's still gonna be a percentage of something, but.
A pot would be
Yeah.
best, that would give us the leverage to go and evaluate, are we comparable with the?
Utilities kind
utility
of
staff?
and there's the.
Public
other
Works, are we
area.
comparable?
Well, there's a way that we could do it, and I think for staff, if there was a message that we wanted to send. When we did it a couple of years ago, we said everyone's gonna get at a minimum, what was it, 3%?
we have, well, we.
No, no, I'm not talking, I'm
I
not
think we
talking,
did 2%
A merit?
COLA and then 2% merit is what we did when I first started.
Yeah, with up to and two,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we set a baseline, okay, we're gonna allocate X amount of dollars, and everyone gets a set percent increase, at a minimum, 2%, 2.5%.
And then the rest.
And then there are positions that could get more than that, just based on market conditions, whatever. So, but at least you're setting a baseline, saying that, okay, the board has approved a flat increase, a merit increase of at least 2.5%. And you may get maybe more than that. And we have to justify that. It's market conditions, it's team role, it's, whatever that is.
Was there anything in
And so
business?
what pocket of money would you put with that then?
I would,
Because I would
I'd
like
say
to-
even though I wouldn't go as high as,
If most people out there are doing 3% raises, are getting a 3% raise next year, I would, instead of 2.5, I'd like to make that 3%. And then if you do that 8% range, that's
You have a
another
bucket,
5%.
yeah, I think
That-
if I were to make a recommendation, I would probably say that we would shoot for 8% and guarantee a 3% rate increase across the board. But we also need to make sure that, like the staff needs to validate, because we might have,
I have 4
Okay,
people
I like
right
that.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I
it
like
gives them
the
a bucket,
3 and the
like-
5.
But if we took the increase to the 5%, and guaranteed at 3%, everybody would get at least a 3. There wouldn't be any.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's why I'm saying I'm not sure 8 is.
How many people do we have that are at?
That's what I
those?
just, 4.
4.
I have 4
So
who are
are
at
they all in the
limit.
same classification?
No,
So why wouldn't, before we do any of this, why wouldn't we want to see how many classifications we have? 5, 6?
well, 2 of them are in utilities, 1 is in administration, and 1 is in public works.
I'd like to see where we're at, who's at the top, how many are at the top, then to make the determination, do we have to do the same percentage to everyone?
No.
No.
So why couldn't we have one class that might have or need an 8 and another one has no need for 8, you could do 5?
Well, there's going to be additional
But
due
that's
diligence that should
a-
take place. I mean, we should be looking at all of our roles and classification.
Now,
But there's also, you can have, so here's a problem that happens a lot of times in these areas. You've got 3 field supervisors. They're all at different wage ranges. It could be based on tenure, whatever. So, and you want to make sure that that's not necessarily true, they get paid the same, but you've got, let's say if someone has 7 years of experience versus 3, well, that logic might tell you they shouldn't necessarily be at the same range,
it may
right?
be that like a lot of times, you get in a position, you gotta have somebody, you pay what the market is.
But, and
how
that's,
you get
and that is
yourself in that
exactly the
corner.
problem that we're in now, because a lot of companies, like I said, had to overpay by 20%,
That's how you get in that mess.
and now they're laying off all those folks, they can't afford them anymore, somebody's not there. But my point is, I think if we set a minimum, and that's good faith across the board, everyone's gonna be guaranteed at least a minimum X amount. And then we also have an additional bucket that staff will analyze, and we can, we can help with that. Say, are there specific areas that we need to increase due to market conditions?
Yeah, I'd like to see the
Okay,
classifications.
So put numbers to that idea.
Um,
If you had to make a motion right now, it would be,
I'm not ready yet. I don't have enough data.
I would staff suggestion. Give us the pot, let us do that evaluation, because we need to compare comps, and the range may be subject to a 5% change, but their performance and their whatever.
Only more than 2%.
But this is
Yeah,
not
so-
it's not
so
a
you
performance.
want-
I want to look at the
so
classifications.
you want a pot of dollars.
I would prefer a pot of dollars.
A good, and what I'd say.
I'd suggest $125,000.
I would, let's see, okay, I was thinking somewhere around the 5% because everyone's gonna be guaranteed, we're gonna guarantee at least 2.5 or 3, whatever the number is. And then you'll have the excess upwards to 5 across the board that you can use for selected roles. So, I mean, 110, 120, I mean, I think that's a pretty decent.
Seems pretty generous.
5% is of what total? So we
If
know
we
what the-
increase everyone's pay range by 5%, it would be this 110,590.
That's what it would cost us to do that.
So
No, no.
Well, no, that's the difference between that.
The cost would be much less.
5% would be,
35.
Because the only way it would be cost us that much is if everybody's at the top of the range, they're not, only 4 people.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, if you do 5%, we were only, let's say guaranteeing 3% across the board. So you take, there will be, if you say, okay, we're gonna fund it 5%, but we're only gonna allocate 3%. So there's gonna be some additional dollars, and that's where those additional dollars would be specified for specific areas.
Okay,
And again, you might have an area that, 2 roles that need a 7% increase to keep up with
That's
market
my
conditions.
point.
But-
and I understand, certain skill level. I do have one question about the FRS, because my heart would like the
Yeah.
FRS. I choke at the 13% raise. But were we to adopt that, hypothetically, would it be appropriate to say, because we have incurred this extra cost for your benefits, that the salary bumps for the next 2 or 3 years would be a lot lower? And would that be a negative to us?
It would. That's.
See, and that's what I
because
got from Laura's survey. There's a lot of people that do
Don't
not want it.
They don't
They
want-
want the cash.
They want the
in
cash
hand.
in their pocket now.
So as much as my heart says I like FRS, if
I
I
do
was
too.
being employed, that's what I would want.
But what scared me that's been said is that the FRS is all based upon employee retention to have stability long-term.
Correct.
That doesn't sound to me like that's what we got.
Yeah, but
So-
and I agree with,
want.
I agree with what you're saying. But
Will it
if
create
we're,
it? That's a different story.
but if we're at, and I don't have any data to support this from the district, but if our fall off was happening at year 5, year 6, then I'd say, okay, maybe there's, and why? Like, people are leaving for the county because they're looking for long-term commitment. I don't think that's our case.
So can I make a suggestion? You do a compromise. So you do a pot of money this year to help slide the scale and leave that to us to figure out. Give us a year to figure out if FRS is really worth the time and investment, and potentially make that dive next year, but not this year. But give us a
There's
year.
gotta be a trade-off if we go with SR. It's gotta impact either the bonuses.
Big percentage of people.
There's gotta be something,
Well, it's got to impact,
because otherwise you're
It's gotta
looking at
impact.
15% raise for everybody.
yeah, I mean, the FRS has to, because it's a cost of us, it has to impact something within the district, either
Right.
tenure, our ability to attract, I mean,
It's a shame that FRS is all we're done.
Yeah.
It is,
That's
it
still-
is. If those people that want to get in it, if we could just get it.
Because here's the other thing,
Or a
too.
comparable program that they might volunteer.
well, here's the other thing too, that we didn't talk about. It's great for us to say, we have an FRS program, but if we're not comparable in pay ranges, it's for naught. So even though we're funding this, we still have to have continued conversations about allocating additional dollars for merit or competitive compensation for specific areas, maybe not across the board, but I think what I'd like to do is, we'll allocate a dollar amount, but we also need to specify, what I'd like to
base.
specify a base percentage for all employees, and maybe we go, you know, 3, maybe I'd be happy with even 2.5.
I would
or-
let
You guys recommend that to
Let
us.
us do
Yeah.
that, please.
Well, one last
Like
question,
everything?
I'll get off of this. But since we say historically get a 3% raise, we don't also bump our ranges 3% annually?
No,
You mean your pay range?
no, that,
No, because that just helps you,
they did double.
Then I'll have
You
I'll
might-
have a meter tech making $60 an hour if it never stops. And that's the hard pill that is always to swallow, is the position pays what position pays.
but there is also, like, if you're in a band and you've been with the company 20 years and you've been a field specialist that 20 years, you will get, most companies have additional band grades for a specific role. So very rarely do you hit a spot and say, oh, we can't ever pay you anymore because you're at the top of the range.
Well,
Like, you're,
We have,
well, and that's something we have to correct, or
Yeah, because that
have
goes
people
on
to different roles.
and that's what I'm saying, with somebody that's exceeding, like this, hey, thank you for doing a big job.
But you
Right
could, like,
there,
if you're.
but no, thank
if you're
Well, then
at a
you're
certain
making up a
role-
bonus, I hope.
Yeah,
But you
but
find-
you can't hit a ceiling, I mean,
Or you
don't,
just tell
don't
them,
get me
change
wrong.
your classification.
But we
Well,
don't
that's
have
another-
one.
That's what we.
The bigger
yeah.
companies do that, you got all kinds.
You don't have to be, if you're a lineman, you can jump to something else, but you've got to get training and do that. If you're not willing to do that, you stay, I know in
We do
our
that,
engineering
yeah.
field, you stay in that field and you're gonna get maybe cost of livings, but as far as a pay rate, you're
Right.
not gonna get one.
Yeah, and
Every
honestly,
utility
we don't
did
have
a
those
lot of it,
positions
right?
where,
Utility did a lot of what Ed's saying.
Yeah, we
Okay, but
established.
what Chelsea's asking for is a dollar amount.
Yeah,
And let
I'd
us.
like to suggest 125,000.
that's.
I
no problem.
can't
that
see
would-
much more than 100,000. 125, that's all.
Well, 125 is, would it be what?
Be about 8%.
8%, yeah, okay.
Well,
I'm
here's the
good
thing
with
too,
that.
that doesn't
Would it be
mean that you
176?
can just,
Well,
like, if we want to
gotta go
spend a whole
this
125, like, it has to be justified. I
No,
want to
but
come
if
back.
you give them the pot of 125, it's going to be used. If you give them a pot of 100, it's going to be used. And I'll
Yeah,
give 100.
But maybe there are some people that they need to keep encouraging.
Well, then,
That's why you go
people
back.
that you don't want to give it to, or those that are bumping the ceiling.
That's why I'm saying the classifications do not have to be the same.
Right.
There's your answer.
So 125?
100.
125,
I
125.
like 125.
Okay, I'm good with 125. 100 for Bob.
Pretty darn
That's
generous.
kind of,
We're looking at how much our costs are going up.
I mean, for me, I'd much rather.
We're talking about the
be honest,
range.
if you need it, but I
not
don't
the
want,
salary.
I don't want Chelsea and staff
No, if you give them
spending.
the money, we're talking about a fixed dollar amount of money. If you give them the fixed dollar amount of money, it will be spent.
No, it's giving them the opportunity.
How about we
To
give
get- not-
up
not give
to
it.
125? Would that be better? And if you don't spend it, you don't spend it? I'm gonna be like 124.9. So up to 125?
Yeah, I'll work with whatever you guys propose. If it's 100, we'll evaluate it and maybe everybody gets 1%, 2%, I don't know.
But again, we're not talking about an increase in salary.
Correct.
We're talking about
The range.
raising the range of that classification.
Right.
And what it
No.
sounds like.
No, that's
no,
not,
no, no, no.
that's not what
We're
he's
talking
proposing.
about actually adding 3% on top of
Dollars.
Yeah, but,
dollars on top of everything.
yeah, but I understand that, but 8% and 3%. 8% is only, or 7%, 6%, whatever the number is only the range. You still gotta get the
They're-
salary increase.
So they're talking about giving a pot of gold. Forget the range.
Yeah,
Forget the range. They want to give them a check for 125,000 to distribute without regard to any change in ranges.
Well, then-
No,
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 no, no, no,
no,
no,
And
no,
I'm
no,
not
no,
understanding.
no, that will be mid-change, that change will be that.
no. The intent was based on what, you want to explain? Okay.
You need a schedule to see this classifications and what their ranges are, so we know what we're talking about. You've got 4 people in one range that are at the
We got it.
maximum right now.
We got it.
Can you pull it up?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
ranges
Picking up with that Friday.
ranges should be adjusted, I mean, annually anyway. You should be looking at your ranges.
But
That's
then, right now, we need a number to put in the budget
Defer
for
this
some
till
sort
next
of
Friday.
increase.
Defer until Friday and get some.
Thursday.
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 Friday is Thursday. the 12th.
Thursday,
I'm
12:98.
I'm hearing 2
9.
different things. I'm hearing.
I know,
one
that's what
change
I-
in pay ranges, which does not
Cost
impact the
anything.
salary. And
Okay,
I'm
Doug,
hearing the other one saying
Could you
increase
go
the
along with
salary.
100,000?
Right now, I have no idea what the increase is gonna be, so it's just a bucket. I mean, I'm fine with starting with 100, and if they have to come back and say, look, hey, based on evaluations, we have a shortfall of $15,000 in
Okay,
order to be
so then I'm
competitive.
fine
It's-
with 100.
It's either we're trying to be competitive or we
All
don't.
right, so 100, that's, I'm fine with
I
that.
don't care.
And then you come back to us on Thursday and you say 100 was fine, 99 was actually better, or I need 112.
Well, we might not even be able to, so here's the thing. We don't allocate everything right out of the gate. I mean, there's gonna be, and this is what I wanna make sure that we don't do necessarily, is, we're gonna go with a certain percentage. And then there's some roles that are open that we have to, let's say there's an open role right now and we aren't getting the
Project manager.
project manager, and we're not getting the candidate flow that we need because the market is dictating, 10,000 more. for
We're not
that role.
competitive.
Right, so this bucket would allow us to
Take the 100%.
to adjust the range to Ed's point, but also offer that entry or have more flexibility on some of these roles. So we want to impact salaries, at the next review period, at a certain percentage. Areas that we need to adjust, it's not a payout, it is, we're going to adjust we're going to increase this particular role a certain amount, let's say it's 5% because of market competitiveness or whatever, it's market increase. But it also allows us to adjust both existing pay and, to Ed's point, adjust the ranges. But this dollar amount doesn't, what we're giving staff really doesn't impact the range necessarily, but we still need to make sure that our ranges are validated against market conditions.
So you were asking about like,
So do you like 100,000?
That's fine, it's a good starting point.
Okay,
And it may be, it's an ending point as well. We just don't know. So we can't look at everyone's salary. We don't know what market conditions are across all roles.
Okay, we'll take the plot. Thank you.
Where do we?
what else?
100.
I know you're under the dollar, the pot. So what do we do about the ranges?
I
Any
will,
change?
I will,
Look like Thursday.
I'm gonna come back.
You'll come back with it. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
And again, ranges can be adjusted at any
I'm
point.
okay with the ranges.
At any point.
Understood. Understood.
I was
But-
telling the board more.
Okay.
So your issue with the ranges is the fact that we've got 4 people or 5 people hitting the max, and that needs to be resolved.
Well,
Especially is if they have merit for an increase. I mean, like you said, giving them the money and then giving them a difference in bonus, what do they accomplish?
Well, but here's
The same thing.
the simple solve there is, and I think we do this. You have field specialist 1, field specialist 2, field specialist 3.
Yep.
And so once you max out at field specialist 1, you get bumped to field specialist 2 if you meet the requirements for that advancement. But, you just don't keep increasing people just because they stay enrolled for 15 years.
and
That's exactly right.
that was the pill that was hard to swallow for staff this year when we implemented the
Last year was
last
hard,
year.
too.
When we
Last
did
year,
it,
because
yeah.
I remember that conversation with staff about that, and it's like, for once, you control what you make, go get this certification, go get that, and then you can control that, so.
Okay. All right, we beat that horse to death.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
My last thing is, the Pelican Preserve admin building assessment. PPAC has requested that amount for the shortfall be assessed this year. Ultimately, it is up to the board if you agree with that or not. Historically, the board has gone with whatever PPAC has recommended. I just need to know what the board's wishes are for that particular line, so that I know how to handle it for the budget.
So feedback wants to assess?
They want to assess.
Instead of pulling.
Just, it's for, at least for purposes of high water mark.
Then
You
I'll
can always pull it
assess,
off.
So I would like to go with PPAC's recommendation
Okay,
and then see if, based on other information that they've gotten now about interest payments or money and all that sort of stuff, if maybe they want to then change to
Sure.
the reserves, because we can always go down.
yes. Yeah, they have until August to make that decision.
Right.
So,
We
okay.
want to support what they ask.
So for purposes of the
I'll
high
vote
water
we do
mark,
that.
we'll keep it in there. Got it.
Now,
That was everything.
do you want to go through each fund and have any questions? And we have this time and next Thursday before we have to approve the high water. So nothing's, really nothing.
Through it, I didn't see anything.
The only thing that has changed as of today, is we have the H&GP match for the grant that we received of $250,000. We want to make sure that we assess for that, just to the gateway
To
side.
get the 3 months,
To get the free month.
absolutely.
So, but by at least getting it the high water mark, it can always come down. Stephen, that'll give Stephen, Laura, and myself time to look at all of our funds and see if maybe that's a.
Never turned out 3 months.
I'd like to see this between, let's say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week. You're gonna do these calculations, you're gonna start seeing, the numbers are gonna start falling in place. If that number comes out where you're over, let's say, $1,300, just say that as a number. Come back with a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 priority of what it takes to cut, or what combinations of items it takes to cut to get it into that number.
Okay.
So we
Okay, you're
don't, so
talking
we're
about-
not here at the meeting
From
trying to
highway.
figure out, we've done this before. Just sitting here and arbitrarily, let's have a list of,
That's what we do.
we have a list of.
That's what we
cuts.
always get.
Yeah, I know, let's have a
But you're
predetermined.
talking about the gateway numbers.
Well,
Yeah, well, I'm assuming we'll do the same on both, but the issue is that let's have our alternatives and options to cut if we have to
Right.
cut.
And can I ask for clarification?
So are you wanting to go from the 1,800 figure, which includes the bond payments, down to 1,300?
Yes.
Or are you talking about the
No,
15 to
yes.
the 13?
With the bond or without the bond?
18 to 13,
The 18,
to
So
13.
13 total.
That's with using the interest and all that we talked about,
It's including debt service.
including debt service. Yes.
So 100, because the late bank
The
went up
1,800
50.
included but debt service. So the $1,800, which was the high mark that we put in this, on the street, that is the number that we're going to bring back down. My request is that it doesn't, if that number, and I was looking at it right now and it's done and it says 1,300 or less, I'm happy.
What's the debt service number going?
Well, late bank went up
It's set.
$50 this year, so
Per-
that's a direct
Per
impact right
gateway
there.
zone?
Yeah,
And
those
then-
numbers are fixed. There's not much we can do
And-
about those.
But the other part was the 2023 bond series, where using that interest and
Okay.
paying that, so that would go to zero and see where we fall.
And then next year, if we spend more money on lake banks in 26,
Hopefully,
then
it's
it's gonna keep going
it's
up.
dwindling, because we have 2 ponds to finish that are under contract this year that are gonna be kicked to next year because of Mother Nature, but we're waiting for that grant to do the,
Oh, if that
that's
comes in
21. Yeah, so I
That's
don't,
terrific for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just saying, let's have options that we can discuss to use to cut, to hack the budget back, should we have to do that.
Okay, so your goal is to get the total assessment, including debt service, $1,300 or less.
My objective is the 18, whatever number was on that green sheet, to 13.
Just say yes, Ed.
13.
That's what you get.
I don't have a say, I want it to be the numbers what the numbers are.
Right.
I don't wanna, the last thing I want is to dictate it, I want it to be
No, I'm
whatever.
not saying, I'm not
I
saying,
know,
I just
I
want an
know.
option.
What you say and what somebody else hears is 2 different things.
I just want to be able to, that if we have to cut, I want to have staff telling us what are our options to cut.
Well,
We may
yes.
not even have to cut.
Yeah, the staff and each other are, we can tell each other what we think, but to me, it's Laura, just, whatever the numbers are, that's what they are.
Well, the reason why it's difficult is because under this new methodology with the silos and everything, taking something out of X may not be as advantageous as taking it out of Y or Z. So you gotta look at that now. It gets a little more complicated.
But you can't focus on doing it solely with equalized assessments. I think
Yeah.
What now?
you can't use the guide, the North Star, the guiding light to equalize assessments. Yeah,
That's right, it's gonna be tough now.
well, no, you're not trying to.
We're not trying to, he's just making sure he's not trying that, no.
You're
Whatever
not
the numbers
arbitra-
are,
You're not
Are they
arbitrarily,
gonna, whatever the numbers are the numbers are gonna be.
yes.
And then they can give us suggestions, we can cut it, and we can give suggestions,
Yes.
and you can give suggestions, and the residents can give
It's
suggestions.
the
and we
revenue
cut it.
sources and funds.
Keep in mind, again, it's still the high water
Yes.
mark.
Correct.
Yes, we got that. All right,
Okay,
next.
that's all I had for budget, unless anybody else had anything else to add, you answered all of our questions.
Thank you. All right, so 12, public hearing.
I suggest, Madam Chair, you have a motion to open the public hearing for consideration of the adoption of revised schedule of rates, fees, and charges.
Okay.
If you can entertain a motion,
I'll make some motion.
Well, I have a motion
open
by,
the public hearing.
I have a motion by Bob to open the public hearing. Do I have a second? I'll
Second.
second. Okay, second by Ed, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Note that Carol stepped out of the room for that vote.
All right.
Wait till she comes back, or?
Sure,
Well, it passed.
it did pass, but
No, it hasn't.
why?
We just opened. the
We
public
just
hearing.
opened here, now we gotta vote.
Oh, yes, yeah, we'll wait for it, yeah. I think that's what that says.
Yeah,
It passed
I mean,
over the
it
hearing.
passed,
yeah. And Chelsea Laura, is anyone registered to speak on this topic?
Nope,
Has anyone submitted any comments, email, fax, or by telephone? Thank you. And for the record, the affidavit of publication is in there, of the timely advertising of the proposed schedule and the fee schedule for today's hearing.
Yes.
Meets the statutory requirements.
So every year, about this time, we do the fee schedule for the general fund. This is general fund only, for the rates, fees, and charges, mainly to help coincide with the leagues and the rental of the soccer field. Can you go to the proposed page? You've seen this before. Anything in red is proposed changes, so just some minor changes per household, things that we've learned as we're operating. Food truck vendor cancellation fee, we have these to our events that they require the fire department inspection, and so we try to coordinate that with costs and things like that, and so,
Where is this?
the food truck vendor cancellation fee.
Where is this form? For this fee?
It's 12,
12A.
it's 12A.
It's page
It's page 151 of the book.
162, if you're looking at the electronic version, it's.
One of the other things that we had this year was we had a league that there was a fight. We asked the league that anytime that they had, competent championship matches, that they have the Lee County, Sheriff's Office come out at their cost. So we wanted to make sure that was included in here as part of the fee schedule in the event that we had to dictate that to them.
I'm used to that for soccer events for adults, but even for the kids,
Kids, yeah, parents.
Wow.
Can be rough too.
It's gotten better, but
And then,
wow.
So the only question I have is on the sliding scale for the food truck vendor cancellation fee, what is the proposed sliding scale? It says to be determined. We need to have
we need to have that, okay, well, we can remove that for now.
okay,
We'll iron that out for the next go around.
okay.
Scroll down, and then, that's pretty much it. We adjusted the rates for the, fields to the, you can see all of those. That was per that schedule that we had a handful of years ago. I did calculations, but
They look reasonable.
I'll email, I can email,
$5.
you did it, boss,
I
$2.
What if the dog park is going to be,
gone. It depends on if you vote for the construction funds, or the funds for the $500,000 for the expansion of the parking lot, of the existing parking lot in the budget. If you choose not to vote for that, that'll kick
I
back
thought
in.
we already agreed last year that, or like, if that's.
The design is pretty, it's coming back
It's a
together.
need, okay, all right.
So what do you, A parking lot will go into one of the dog parks?
Where the dog
Part,
park is.
parts of it, yeah, but that's a necessity we need.
After the dogs being there, the grass grows really good.
So this is what we're proposing for to go into effect as soon as you adopt it, if you choose to adopt it.
Do you want a motion to approve?
Yes.
I make a motion. we
Well,
approve
first,
that?
I
We have
close
open
the
to the public for
close the
comments,
public
right?
hearing. It's already open, you opened the public
Okay,
hearing,
close.
yes for any comments, there's no comment. And so I think the appropriate to move to close the public hearing.
Uh-huh.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
I just,
Hold on.
one second,
Sorry.
can we just reassess and just have a reasonable conversation around like the dog park fee? $50 annually seems like a really low number with,
For residents.
Yeah, but remember how we talked about, Bill talked about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, like that we wanted to keep cost as cost, like so the dog people pay and
I mean, the whole-
dog people.
the reason why, I mean, and we had Ed Ryan come in, remember Ed said the driver behind the dog park was to provide an amenity that was not readily available. And that it would be self-funded. That was the design. It was that it would self-fund itself. And now what has happened is we're replacing sod.
We're subsidizing a lot.
And there's a lot going on.
We're also doing the same thing for everything else.
But we are upping, like, I think on the,
Well, let's look
the
at it.
leagues, like, that's the only thing that I remember us talking about before. The leagues, we came, I think we said about 4 years, it would be 100%, because we couldn't do it, we couldn't do the whole amount of year one, because it was a huge increase, but we did say there was going to be a 4 years, or maybe 3 years, that by that 3 year mark came, which I think is next year,
This
is
is
this
it.
year. Oh, so this is it, so we're not subsidizing anymore.
Well, but that's, Ed, you bring up a good point. It's like for our amenities, how much Are-
We did a cost benefit analysis.
of the revenue that's generated, how much is, what is that percentage of total operating costs? Is it, so
You put, talk about it.
I'm just wondering, I think your point was,
What is it up for cost?
if we look at other amenities, let's say like the field usage versus the dog park, I think the fees should be in line with each other. Like it shouldn't, like we shouldn't try to cover more expenses for the dog park than we do for the fields. Like it should be, it's an amenity. We should have a threshold of how much of that do we want assessed. So we've said, eventually over time, we want it to be 100% funded, but we know that's not reasonable. Like we can get 50%, but I don't know what the dog park is. So what is total revenue over total operating expenses for the dog park?
We don't have that readily available, but if you want to increase the rates, even if it's $25 for the next fiscal year, we can go ahead and do that, and then we can do exactly what we did with the soccer complex and
And,
bring that back.
If
and
you
how
want,
many total dog park passes or members do we have?
Maybe 100.
112 was the last
Yeah.
time.
If you want to do just quick back of the napkin math, we have a budget for sod installation of $25,000 for the dog park, and we have projected income for the dog park of, I just lost it, 7,000.
We were only at
We're at
5,000.
5,000.
5,600.
So it's a $20,000 hole.
That's.
And that's just sod. And
That's not,
That's
that's
not,
cost.
that's not, because irrigation,
That's not irrigation.
we moved that, we
Yeah.
moved that in, and also the benches and everything else,
Yeah.
because they are very vocal about the needs. So I'm not opposed of going up on that.
When you say that it's $50 right now and up to 2 free cards per household, what does that mean? To every household? they would get-
If you and your wife both wanted an access card for the dog park, you pay $50 and you both would get.
Okay,
That's
so you
$50.
get this, it's included.
It's like your fob.
Yes,
is your-
Yeah. So if you want to go up on that,
Do we have additional cards cost?
The cards are nominal. I mean, like 87 cents. It's
yeah,
not-
it's, we haven't.
No, I thought
We have
we
a
did.
charge if you want to buy more cards, yes.
What did
Yeah,
you
I
say,
thought-
what did you say the revenue versus expenses were?
The revenue
Right
is
now,
5,600.
We're at like 40, a little shy of 5,000 right now. Plus,
Expenses were what?
And the last time,
we have
Just the
25,
sod.
we have $25,000 budgeted for sod.
Just sod.
and I think I remember we had talked this before, the operating expenses, including sign, I think it was like 30,
Oh, right here, $35 for replacement.
it was like 30K. That was one sod replacement a year and then additional,
Partial.
was like
It was not
five.
even one sod, it was one It was either.
One side or the other, right, we would
other.
rotate. But I think what is the budget? What's in the budget? How
That's what I'm
much?
saying, what is the current, but look at that current
I said
transaction.
the budget for SAD for the dog park is $25,000.
And then what else?
So what else? Because I think it's separated.
Because of the way that the mainscape contract was redone, I don't have that checked separately
No, no,
anymore.
I know. Can you look at the financial end of the month, last month?
I am.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking
And
at.
that's all we have?
Yeah, that's the only thing that's
You
broken
don't have
out.
repairs and anything?
Nope.
So we didn't buy any
It's all
furniture?
lumped under R&M Parks and
Because
Rec.
we moved it last year, right?
Yeah.
They used to be, okay, so we're.
So why don't we increase the fee from $50 to $75 and then ask staff to bring back next year a figure that would cover all costs?
Are you gonna raise non-resident as well then?
To 175?
Yeah,
To
sure.
175?
175.
Do we have that many non-resident?
We actually do have quite a few non-residents.
Do it?
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay.
There are a couple, yeah.
Take them down to JetBlue. Walk around for nothing. Into the runway.
Thanks.
Let them chase birds.
So resident to 75, non-resident to 175.
175.
All right, any other changes?
And then come back next year with covering all costs.
If it's still.
Well, if it's still
Still
there.
have one.
Well, but I think if he's not there, then it would be on the commons, right? Because that's really cheap, just.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, we ought to have 75 for the big dog.
I mean, there's no way,
35 for the little
there's
dog.
no way under current conditions can you do this at 100%, because people aren't gonna pay 250, 300, well, maybe. I mean, if you wanna do it, that's what we would charge to be a dog park member, is $270.
Well, you're basing that off of current usage. If you get more members, then your rate would go
You
down.
have St. Bernard or.
But what's gonna be different this year to next year?
Bigger park than.
Maybe location.
Toys.
That's more cost though,
I know.
you know what I mean? Like, you can't,
Yeah.
that's like, we want
We
more,
always
we
did
want
the
more
dog
people to
park.
go to the
That-
pool,
I mean,
but nothing's gonna change.
Scott used to say that all the time. The
It's a
dog
St.
park.
Bernard, $200. It's a poodle,
You get paid
85.
by the weight, charge by the weight.
Okay.
Dollar a
Okay,
pound.
that's
All
right.
right,
let's
so
keep
no,
going.
no other questions on this, so a motion to
Close the public hearing.
Okay, do you want me to make that in the form of a motion?
close public hearing? Yes, please.
Oh,
Or you meant
I
the
thought we
increase?
already did that.
No,
We just gave you
I moved
direction.
to
I
close the
tried to
public
close
hearing.
it, they wouldn't let me. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed.
Now do we have to make another motion to change these amounts?
Yes.
Yes.
I make a motion to change the amounts.
So dog park resident to $75 and non-resident to $175.
And then you're gonna have reporter removing this food truck vendor cancellation fee line.
Yes.
Done.
You make it?
Second.
I made that motion.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a fee schedule.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll notify the leagues if we haven't already.
All right, district manager items.
I have a couple items I just wanted to bring up. Julie retires on June 20th. She's counting down the days. Just wanted to let you guys know, if you do stop in the office, please thank her for her what, nine years of service. We had our annual meeting, true-up meeting with the county to go over projects and expenses and future planning. What they're proposing for future rate increases, somewhat of a sticker shock. And as you know, we have pass-throughs, so we've adopted their schedule, which was an 8% increase over the next, well, what was 5 years. What they're now proposing is December 1st.
Just tell us.
I'm getting there. December 1st of 2025 or sooner, an 8% increase.
On top of the other eight?
Yeah, is that for, I thought they said it was ever for the next 5
Is that
years.
16 or is that 8?
That, I don't know. I have to get further clarification, but 10/1 of 26, they're proposing 16%. And that goes sewer and water. And then 12% each year thereafter. So I asked them that they give us at least a 2 to 3 month time to review our rates and hire a consultant.
8% by December, now I gotta write this down.
8%, I can give you this paper if you like.
What's their justification and does it impact us?
Hurricane,
Capital projects is their biggest thing, so expanding their water out off of Corkscrew and then rebuilding the beach reclamation facility.
plus That's
mainly
good.
capital projects is keeping up with the infrastructure. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So we're monitoring this. We're going to keep a pulse on it and see what happens.
So
And then-
basically, we're paying for something that won't directly benefit us.
No.
That we don't use.
Does that sound familiar?
That we don't use,
Yeah, I think
right?
it's everything from Metro that way.
Yeah.
That sounds like the parks, you know, that
Well,
conversation.
I don't, doesn't seem fair to me.
He's joining us.
You all were.
But we don't have any choice over it.
You got
right?
red.
Like,
You got really
We're
red.
negotiating on that, right?
No.
Because everyone pays the same thing
Everyone,
regardless.
it's
Yeah.
Okay.
residential,
Just-
commercial, both.
He's in charge of something I don't use.
Okay, everybody understand?
You were all emailed from Randy individually, the audit, at the
I
next,
took a picture.
at the next committee, at your next meeting, you will be turning your hat and being an audit selection committee, that's per statute, so make sure you get your evaluations into Randy, if you
It's
haven't
just for these
already.
two firms.
Yes, just for the two firms, those were the only two that were
And then
submitted.
Doug and Carol, yours are still at the
Because you're
bottom.
not in the office.
Did
Yeah,
anybody talk
Oh,
to our
yeah.
current
I already had
firms,
it.
why they didn't
Okay,
submit?
so you can have
So,
that
But we're
everybody.
gonna call them.
Yeah, not yet.
But I mean, the time.
One is
time's over,
45
correct?
pages, the other is 50 something.
They were notified
You'll get a
prior
quiz.
to it going out. Lastly, Carrie handed out the red, white, and pool itinerary. Again, would love for you to show up if you would like to volunteer your time, if you need if you want to help out. I know a couple of you have gone there in the past, so you can kind
We
of
all
see,
have, I think.
yeah, so you can kind of see the itinerary.
I
That
didn't
is,
see Ed there.
I was there.
we did the first,
No, but every year.
He went home all alone.
Oh.
I just you're asking about the auditor, Steven just shot me a note, he said Jay Gaines is retiring, so that might be why I didn't fit.
Okay.
Yeah, because we received an audit opinion letter from one of my other districts, and so my assistant contacted and asked for Jay Gaines, and they said he's retired.
lucky him. So red, white, and pool is Saturday, June 28th from 10 to 2 if you'd like to participate. And two other things.
Oh, it's really nice, Paul Leogrand was one of our sponsors, which is our chair for the Parks and Rec Committee.
Yeah. So in July, the first meeting in July is July 3rd. I know some of you take and travel for the 4th of July, so I didn't know if you wanted to hold that meeting or not.
I will be away.
Okay, I'll be here.
You-
You
I
away?
will not be here.
I was gonna, okay.
You're always in Brazil also.
I will also be away, but I will be
Okay,
joining
I'll be
remote.
here.
So I didn't know if you wanted to cancel the meeting or
I
have
think
it.
our agenda's been pretty light lately.
Yeah,
I think we could probably skip the
Can't
meeting.
skip a meeting.
Skip the third?
I wasn't gonna skip, but since you're all skipping, I'm
Well,
gonna
you-
skip.
I mean, I would take your recommendation.
I would just, because either way, if you had it, we would make it a light agenda
But-
and push home.
I'm ready.
I think we just skip it.
Got a passport with us.
So
She's on a flight later.
I make a motion that we cancel the July 3rd meeting.
I'll second your
workshop.
motion.
And
workshop.
I'll second your motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then, we'll email this out, so we're gearing up for next fiscal year. We have a lot of board meetings. Well, we have one board meeting scheduled for January 1st. So as we get closer, we need to evaluate those dates, and some of the safety and security and landscaping meeting, they fall, near holidays, so we'll send this out, and then we'll bring this up at the next board meeting as an agenda item for discussion.
Do you need volunteers for the red light bulb?
We always need volunteers.
Okay, we're just gonna email to my kids because they need to have.
Have them email Carrie.
Alright.
Have them email Sarah directly.
They need 30
That
hours.
would be something really nice to post to, is needing
Oh,
volunteer hours for
summertime,
next
or-
year.
Yeah, that's ready to
Is
go.
it- yeah.
That's awesome.
Community service obligation.
For their schools require,
Right,
some of the
yes, like,
schools require
you
service
see,
hours.
that just used to need another 30 hours of rent.
Some of the
Volunteers.
schools require like 40 hours of service hours.
That's right, community service.
Yeah.
Okay, that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. District manager, oh, you want to bypass that, we just go through as done? All right, so we'll go ahead and let's talk about district manager annual review. Bring your cookies. That'd be nice.
That's why.
I paid for those too. The district did not pay
This
for
is
those.
gonna cost you a percentage.
Let me take them home for my kids.
All right, we're not gonna be shy about it, let's start.
I'd like to suggest a 7% raise on the base
Okay.
with no merit increase this year. I think, basically, when you look at the ratings, they were all 3s, which means she met our expectations last year. I was a little disappointed in my personal opinion is that there were maybe some times during the methodology discussions that I felt that staff had put their opinions in when they shouldn't have. This was a board decision and this was a board process and not, I think we had enough experts that the board should have talked to the experts and staff should not have had expressed opinions on things. And I think that happened a couple times and for whatever reason, it is what it is.
Okay.
So I would like to suggest 7% just on the base.
What's the percentage you're giving to the other employees?
4, maximum 4.
I have a hard time doing that big of a differential. That's not right. It's not right. Whatever we're giving the employees on the base, I would give to everybody.
Different responsibilities.
Do what?
It's different responsibilities. I don't know of many corporations or any companies that have the same bonus structure for their hourly employees all the way up to the top.
I'm talking about base. Base.
You saying that?
Base salary, not merit.
So what would you like to do for, I'm gonna tell you here, so what do you like for base and what do you like for?
I would go to 4% on the base, and I would go to 3% on the salary.
You mean on merit
On
or
merit,
bonus?
on merit, yeah.
Merit or bonus.
Can I summarize my evaluation?
Yeah.
My own internal review. We went through a lot this last year between repeal of Rule 6, the assessment methodology, budgets, hurricanes. There were a lot of external factors that I feel like had those not been there, this evaluation may be a little bit different. I do acknowledge that the public image, maybe not necessarily of myself, maybe it's because I am your manager, I am, I implement the policies that you create. Sometimes those can be misconceived, but that's my job, is whatever the majority of the board chooses, I implement. So I think that's why the public image is perhaps lower on some of these. And I think the program management, that's no surprise, I think with Parks and Rec coming on board, that we could gear that up a little bit more. But overall, I think we accomplished a lot in the last year. I look at the pond projects. I mean, granted, we had and have a great staff to support me and to support you. And without them, I couldn't do everything that you put in front of me. Hopefully things slow down a little bit, but I personally feel that I have met, if not exceeded, expectations. If weeds on a pond bank is my biggest issue that I have to deal with, I'll take that all day, every day. But it's been a pleasure serving you this last year, and I look forward to the next year and so on.
I think the role of district manager is a very challenging role. I don't know how we're evaluating public image. I don't know how we're evaluating that, but I'm looking at, did we achieve our goals as a whole? Are we able to operate on a daily basis, monthly basis? And it seems like we are doing that. So I have no problem with the work you're doing. I think you're doing great. There's always areas of improvement, but the role is challenging by nature. As far as increase, what were you asking for?
I would hope close to the top, if not the top. I don't care how you cut it between merit and bonus, but 10% is 14,000. And not to toot my own horn, but I did get this district $1 million grant and more forthcoming. You pay your engineers a lot more than $14,000.
Yeah.
Granted, they're licensed and everything, but but if I don't toot my own horn, nobody else will.
I'm cautious sometimes with just looking at percentages, because you really have to look at what the existing comp is and where that is in the competitive range. And that's basically what we just said, is we want to make sure that the ranges are competitive. And I think in the market, when I pulled it up and I was doing the research, I think the midpoint that I saw was around 150 to 160. Now again, that does include some variability there, but it's kind of hard to find a district manager role within a community development district. There's just not a whole lot of those out there, so it's really hard to get some of the comps. But I think what I felt was comparable in midpoint is like that. And what I saw was around 150.
Maybe 135, so
It was 145 to 160 was the.
you're at 143, 143.2.
Those are my comments.
The relationship between Pelican Reserve, particularly the subcommittee chairman and district staff, improved greatly last year. I'm very happy to see that. The way staff supports the projects and things, it's been very, very effective. The implementation of the ITQ process has been very favorable for us. It was a hell of a lot of money. And as you said, the grants, the only negative thing that I've got, of course, is Rule 6 interconnectivity. And I go along with Carol's comments. I didn't feel there was as much neutrality there as I would like to have seen. All in all, I'm tickled pink, the organization, the way it functions. I get information in a timely manner. I have no problem with any of that. And a special shout out for the work we've done with the Conservation 6, which hasn't been a no-brainer. The biggest disappointment I have, and I continue to have, is I would like to see us implement a timekeeping system that would be more accurate, more accurately reflect what people are actually working on. Now, I know I'm a minority on that, but that's still technical stuff. Thank you.
So I need a percentage from you.
So
I need a percentage from that.
I was going to go 3%
Base,
base and 4% numbers.
so 7% okay.
I mean, I think anywhere between, 7.5 to 10 is reasonable. It gets you anywhere from 10 to 14K, which would, again, from what I saw, get closer to a midpoint around that one.
My only request is if you do anything less than 10, I'd like to know specifically what I can work on next year to get to that 10%.
So,
Or if there's anything that you can,
Well, how close are you to
Directly.
the top? How close to the top?
She doesn't have a cap, she's the only one that doesn't. It's set by you guys. So the board determines her salary
And
range.
that's why we look
She's the only
to see
exception.
what we have.
Yeah, in my
Around.
corporate history, it's rare to get anybody able to get 10%. To say that you're not doing a great job, but you are. But 7% without a change in role.
well, let's think about this.
responsibility.
Well, so here's something to think about. So if we just said staff's going to do an evaluation, and we talked about giving a flat 3% across the board, 2.5%, 3%. I think you said 3.
And if the 7 that.
And then,
wanna give.
and then, if we're looking at, if we want to do market comps, like, again, I can get you, I can do more due diligence and get you a dollar amount, but again, what I saw through the market intelligence platforms that I have was around 150. So, which would be, anywhere from, from really like a 10% increase. If we're saying everyone gets a 3, then we're left with a 7. And if 7 is what would take to get her to midpoint, then I think that would be reasonable. So we could include, if we wanted to, we could include the 3% that we're gonna do across the board in this, go to 10, and it would be actually justified.
And then she won't get the 3 later on when everybody else may get.
That's, because
Okay.
we do this, we do your bump now, which is outside,
She
it's
doesn't
outside
get
of staff cycle.
Oh, she doesn't get it.
She gets,
Okay.
hers is different. She is the only employee that gets her review at her anniversary date. The rest of us get all of our stuff
Okay,
at
so
the
she's
start
not
of the
gonna be,
fiscal.
so she would be excluded from what we just
Correct.
talked about. So then at 10%, so then in my eyes, because it looks like the consensus is a 7% from all of us, I mean, minus Ed, no, Ed too, because there's 4 and 3. So 7 will be, what would be the increase, plus the additional
Plus the 3, so it'd
3.
be 10%.
So it'd be the 10%.
And again,
then
I
you
don't want to
get-
squabble over a couple grand for the
That's
top tier of our organization.
I think what we may want to do then, to make sure it's clear on the record, is agree to, we need to amend the agreement to increase the cap. Is there?
There's no cap.
There is no.
Well, right now, it's up to 4% of the prior year's base salary, a bonus of up to 6% of the prior
Well, we can
year's
change
base
that
salary.
anytime.
Well,
we want.
that's 10%. So 6 and 4, that's 10, so it's the same with it.
I'm not bound by that, they can change that every year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I think it needs both parties to agree to change that. If you want to change it, make it the 3 and 7, to make the 10.
It doesn't matter, 4 and 6.
But you need to, because the
But we
cap.
said a minimum was 3, we could go higher than that.
Yes, but no, but you're saying that we can do 10.
Yes.
You just cannot break down 3 and 7, you have to break down 4 and 6, unless you amend that.
Yeah, I'm-
So
And
let's
make it
first
3 and
amend
7.
that.
That's what I'm
I'm-
Good.
What I would suggest is that the first action would be for the board to approve an amendment to the March 28, 2022 employment engagement letter to change the bonus up to 8%, as opposed to
I say
6%.
take it out, take any numbers out and just that it's up to the board at the time of the review.
It's up to you if you want. I mean,
You could change,
I don't have a problem with
That
that.
gives you a lot more latitude.
not that you would ever go over
You need not to
10%.
set those.
Because it also could,
Not to
it
set
also
those.
would allow us to go under.
Nothing,
If someone's
you don't-
underperforming,
you get
not you,
nothing.
but if we had someone underperforming, we could say, look, we're going to 0.
Exactly.
so in other words, as opposed to just say eligible for consideration for an
At the
annual
board's discretion.
merit / cost of living adjustment and a bonus,
At the board's
a
discretion.
percentage bonus based on the prior salary as determined by the board.
Yeah, determined by the board.
So
Yeah,
that
let's do
the
that.
board would
So you
make a
wanna make that
motion to
motion?
approve to the engagement agreement to do that effective as of, I'd say July 1st, excuse me, June 1st.
Her anniversary date
25.
is May 16th, which is what you guys agreed to last
May
time.
16th, retroactive to May 16th, 2025. And then I'll prepare that, Chelsea will sign it, Flavia will sign it.
So you're changing it to 10% max?
No,
And not
no
defining it?
max.
Zero.
We're just pulling the percentages out
Put it
altogether,
out all.
and it'll be at our discretion. So again, we could go 0, or we could go whatever.
That's-
based
You
on
could
the
do
market.
just a bonus
Or
instead of a
nothing at all.
merit or nothing.
Okay.
So I would just
That works.
make the motion that we award,
Well, first
No,
motion,
first
oh,
I'm
first we gotta,
to amend the
to amend
yeah.
it.
May
Make
20,
the
March
motion.
20, 2022 employment retained engagement agreement to remove the caps and provide that the merit cost of living and bonus are at the discretion of the board
So
on an annual basis.
So that's your motion, I'll second that motion. I'll call for discussion, no? All in
Anyway,
favor? Oh, yeah. Aye.
Um,
It's
No, no,
not
I'm-
aye and aye, I was talking.
I want to make sure it's clear in my head. Do we consider, and I'm not opposed to a dollar now, whatever that is, but if we consider it in terms of cost of living, I guess that's about 3% right now, whatever the federal government, and then a raise of 3%, that's 6, and 4 for bonus. So I guess I've got to the same 10, but I'm getting there kind of a different way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't give out 10% raises in my 40-year career unless there was a promotion. I recognize she's in it, but I don't want to lose her either. That's a couple bucks either way. I'm with Doug, but that way I can,
So
And I don't think it even matters.
let's first not go into that conversation, because that doesn't affect the motion that we have on the floor. So the
Oh.
motion on the floor is just to remove the percentage out of the current
I agree with
engagement. So I'm gonna call it up for a vote, so we have a motion by Doug, second by Carol, right?
Yeah, you did. You said. you
Okay, so the
seconded it.
motion by Doug, second by me, I'll call all in favor to remove the percentage out of the engagement letter from Chelsea.
Aye.
Aye.
And then that provides
and
ability.
then what I,
May.
Aye.
and what I would do.
A super unanimous vote.
Now we're gonna come in.
And the follow-up motion would just, I would just, however we calculate it in our head, I don't think we need to go to that. I think we just, my motion would be to award the increase at 10%.
Well, but that's important to understand whether
Yes.
it's base salary or not.
Yes.
I need
Because
to
the
know
next year.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not a bonus, it's a base salary increase?
So she's not getting a bonus, you're just giving her a flat out 10% raise.
I don't care how you cut the 10%. If I would recommend what Bob suggested is the 3-3-4. I'm fine with that.
What was the 3-3-4? It was
3% cost, 3% merit, 4%
So
bonus.
6% pay raise and 4% bonus.
What did I get last year?
Okay, so
Well,
I
Hang on.
if it's less than last year for a base, then
I don't think you got that much for these.
think you got 4 last year.
Yeah, I think it was 4 instead.
Well, I'll still stay on the 3.
Go back.
But it's a prior year's base salary, so it's whatever you're getting now is the base for this calculation.
I know, but the base for next year would be,
It would go higher.
It was higher or lower, that's what you want to know. Okay.
It'll go higher
I don't remember.
if the salary goes higher.
I'm sorry, Bob, say your thing again.
It's a 3-3.
3% cost of living, 3% merit, 4% bonus.
She got a, last year you
So
gave her,
basically 6% on the base,
Correct.
4%
Correct.
bonus.
last year you gave her a 3% base and base merit, whatever, and a 3% bonus, so it was a total of 6%.
So then it's a higher now, okay, so then we're looking at 6% base
6 and 4.
and 4.
Okay,
Okay,
that's the one.
so that's
That's
the
my
motion,
motion.
that's motion, okay, so 6% increase on base, 4% on bonus. So I have a motion on the floor by Bob, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by, okay, Earl.
By Laura.
Now we have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
thank you very much.
I think it would have been really neat.
And just to
for
clarify, that's,
Pelican to have the first and second on that.
it's retro to her
Well, we didn't
anniversary
mean, we're
date
gonna do it.
Yep, for
of May
clarification,
16th.
So let's clarification, so it
it's
was,
effective as of May 16th.
yes,
Yes, that's
Yes.
what's
Is that
her
correct?
anniversary date.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
probably
right.
I'll have something for you to sign. I'll
So
put
next
it in,
meeting
but
we'll have
you'll get to
sandwiches.
sign it.
Instead of cookies.
Yeah, whatever, you can sign it after.
And not
And
leaning,
like-
and not leaning water.
really?
Go for the good boxes.
I'll bring koozies.
You have to get the stuff from the top of the pallet.
How about getting it from a different shelf? Like one shelf above where you get,
I mean, this,
come on.
gonna spill. All
Do I need to
right,
make a motion that we upgrade our water for board meetings?
all right, so we have
Better not.
that.
You,
I think you should be more
But we're
environmentally
not done with
conscious.
the meeting, we're not done
Just
with
be
the
more environmentally conscious, bring your own container, you don't have to worry about the bottles.
meeting. Do like me, don't drink water. Literally, my coffee says no water.
I can't afford Starbucks.
So let's go ahead and district attorney items. Do you have anything for us?
They're just working on a number of the projects, you already heard some of them, most of them are in the agenda packet. So, if you have any questions?
Yes. Your correspondence back and forth with Jennifer Kalinsky
Yes, ma'am.
and the Pelican Preserve Community Association concerns, et cetera, et cetera. I'm assuming since the last email that we all got from you was your response to Jennifer that the ball is in her court right now?
Yes, and I've not heard anything back.
You haven't.
No.
Is there a date that, she said something in her thing that she
gave
would
us a date?
release something when it was
Oh.
public knowledge or public,
Publicly
there was
available,
a.
publicly available, I think is what she said.
Okay. Is there a date for that?
She did not provide a date, so I'm not sure what date she
Okay.
meant.
Well, I didn't want to bug you.
No, no bug.
Until,
Nobody.
you know, until the date or whatever. Okay, that's all I had.
Nothing else? Okay. Future board business? And agenda management. Do anybody has any questions for Trustee, I know I usually don't let you present all this because I figure it's a lot easier if you
Yeah,
have
just ask
questions, but
questions.
otherwise we can just read
No,
it.
no, that's fine.
So Bob, do you have anything to add or nothing?
Nope.
Doug, agenda management? Nothing? Nothing? Okay.
Okay, I see that we're supposed to have a workshop on July 3rd,
We canceled it.
but we
We'll just move
canceled
it.
that meeting. So is it possible to have a workshop at the next meeting on the 19th
I'm good with that.
to talk about the budget?
Yeah, I'm fine
We'll
with
be
that.
passing the high water mark next Thursday, and then we can
Start
start
working on
looking
it
at
right away.
We'll add that.
reducing that.
What's,
Okay.
what's the date? If we skip the July meeting, we have one meeting, or
Seven.
skip the first July meeting, we have one meeting, then when's that August meeting?
August 21st.
21st.
So you'll have 2 meetings.
You'll have July 17th, August
The
5th,
19th?
and, well, yeah, you'll actually have June 19th, July 17th, August 5th.
No, you're off.
No, July 3rd,
So be the 17th.
17,
and
7, 21.
7th, and then 21. I was thinking June.
Yes, you can always
We have this, that.
Always have another
So
meeting.
you have 1 in June, 1 in July, and 2 in August.
The public
You have
hearing
four-
is in August.
Yes.
The 20th.
21st is what the resolution, proposed resolution is.
Yeah,
August
you have
21st.
not adopted and set that date yet.
All right,
That's
so
right.
let's go ahead and add a workshop to the 19th at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
Let me
Yeah, what?
back up, I do have one other comment, and I covered this a little bit lower, not at that. But as I'm going through the budgets to understand how we get to the numbers I'm talking specifically to, as I go through it, the change from last year to this year is, I guess this is the result of silos. And I get an end number of what we're charged, and I'm going to try and work with staff that the individual components, if they impact O2 only, that somehow that be designated here, maybe a different color, maybe a little P or something. But I would like to be able to sit down and take a budget book and specifically understand how my total assessment is, and that it's specifically impacting Pelican.
The fact that you didn't have silos last year makes it a little bit more difficult.
It does, it's, I can do it, I know what the Pelican Reserve Safety Group gets, what the landscape group gets, what the pond gets, and even what that other operational part is. Those are locked in. It's when I get down to the below the line, I'll call it, that I get kind of mystified. And that's very dynamic and been changing. But I just want to let you know, if I'm proposing we change these sheets in any manner or form, whether it's an asterisk or a P or something, that helps us identify it. Thank you.
All right, so Carol, you have anything else? Just to add,
Oh, are we at commissioner comments and whatever?
oh, no, anything else for the agenda amendment?
Oh, no,
So, okay, so nothing else, so let's go ahead and go supervisor comments, and you can start, Carol.
yeah. In just looking at the dollars that we had on the assessment chart, it seems that for Parks and Recreation for Pelican Preserve, single-family homes are going to be paying $111,305.75. Multifamily homes are going to be paying $55,385.95, and the golf course is going to be paying $66.73. That's a total of $166,758.43. I would like the board to give direction to the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee that approximately $166,000 be used towards for 26, in the 26 budget, be used for items and amenities that Pelican Preserve currently does not have. So,
Could that also include programs? Or
Sure.
are you talking about physical amenities?
well, I was thinking physical amenities, but like Pelican doesn't have a bike path. Pelican doesn't have a walking path. I mean, you can walk on the streets and you can ride your bike in the streets, but we don't have a designated walking path or biking path. We don't have a gym set. So if your grandkids come over and you want to take them to the swings or
Playground.
whatever, playground.
So, yeah, that's,
We don't have gardens. I'm sure there are other things that I didn't even think of.
okay.
But I would, at least for this next year, I would like us to look at spending basically $167,000 on things, recreational things that Pelican does not have. Now, whether Pelican people then avail themselves of those things or not, or whatever, that's completely up to them. But at least the board could say that we're starting to offer things that are not duplicative.
Carol, can
And
you
it's-
send us
I
what
did,
programs that you guys offer? or your lifestyle guide or whatever it is that you guys have over there, so Carrie can look at that and start to plan programs and
And
then
amenities.
amenities.
Because Doug always mentioned that, like, we are very used to, like, we always want to do something with the seniors, and even the Pelican is 55 and over, something to do it over here. So it's
I
kind
mean,
of both.
Our amenities should represent the demographics in our community. It should be,
The big one you guys, that you mentioned, the bike path and the other, that's an easement related issue that you have to create land.
Yeah, I don't know that there's even
That
space.
one might, that one might be difficult.
we did,
Well, I'm not,
we
I'm
walking
not
past
saying
some of
those.
the
I'm
park.
just saying,
Those are the items they don't have, so look into whatever
or
else.
maybe they have others.
And maybe they want something totally different that they don't have because they don't want it, yeah.
And I would-
Maybe they want one of those exercise things, although most of us are way over 55.
well, I
And
think,
we're not gonna go walking and do chin-ups and all that sort of stuff.
and I think the focus is kind of getting back to Claudia's point. I mean, my vision, and I think we can all could probably say it's our vision as well, but our amenities should be utilized and represented across our different demographics. So instead of saying like this is set aside for Pelican Gaps, I'd say it's a seniors. So for those that are 55 and older, that we should have dedicated amenities and programs for that demographic. And I think it's really important. And I think it would directly point to Pelican, but they're in Gateway Greens and Stony Brook, and every community has the same type of individuals. However, they don't have access to the Pelican resources, but I think it's a great idea, and we should be
Well,
looking at that as
I will say this, and I'll sit cold with this. I would not support putting a specific amenity, be it a playground or anything else, within Pelican.
well. No,
If that would require
Pelican money.
totally open access, then we would lose control of it.
No,
No,
I'm
she's talking about in the commons, right? That's what I.
She's talking about
in the commons
Yeah,
or
in the park area, making
the
sure that
fun
there's
park
amenities
or-
there.
But not physically within the footprint.
No.
Don't forget it.
At the commons,
I'll be
make sure
quiet.
that.
I misunderstood. I
Just-
misunderstood.
a Parks and Rec amenity that is not duplicate of something that Pelican and probably others have. For instance, Pelican doesn't need another swimming pool. And I suspect that there are other places, I mean, Stony Brook has their own, Gateway Greens probably has their own. Well, there are other communities that have their own pools and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see money going to other ideas other than, let's put in
Other
another
needs really
pool.
are.
Let's put in, something that somebody already has and probably are not going to use. But there might be a chance that they would use, I don't know, a Victory Garden type thing or something, I don't know.
Or a program that you guys have so much demand that you need overflow.
What we're trying to combat here is
Duplicate.
Pelican, and as an example, I'm sure there's others, like, we're paying for something we already have. Okay, well, let's change that. Let's offer something that you don't have, and so therefore you think, okay, so I'm paying additional money that people could use
I hear it.
because we don't have that today. At least we're helping to solve.
And if we use it, we use it, if we
If you
don't, we don't.
Yeah.
Okay, but you have all of Gateway that can use it too.
So let's just earmark, let's see where the gaps are, and then we can make sure that we're allocating resources or just saying, hey, we're gonna have walking trails at the new parks.
And I hope it comes out of PrAC, that's really where it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's a good idea.
we should ask the Parks and Recreation Committee to come back with suggestions.
Ideas.
We
Yeah,
had Mr. Schofield on the committee now too, so you have a representative.
do?
Let's get over
Yeah,
Joe.
on
You
Friday.
know, record.
and Joe was here
Where's
today
it?
too.
It never runs out of ideas.
There we
Good
go,
old
okay.
Joe.
Anything,
That's all I have.
anything for Supervisor Collins?
Yeah, a couple of things. Where are we at with sound mitigation on the pickleball that's been raised?
Oh, that's gonna be a biggie.
Huh?
That's gonna be a biggie.
It already is.
I believe we put, I reviewed an article before I went on
We
vacation
did.
that went out.
I think went out 2 days after, and I spoke with a few of the residents from, I spoke with a few residents from Hampton Park, and the consensus that I received, then I told them, I said, if you have any concerns, please email us, and it was 0. So it was 1 or 2 that had a concern, because one person mentioned, it wasn't as big of
The
an
one that
issue
I
that
got
it
from
was.
is a professional, what do you call it, audio?
Yeah, we got that one.
The one that
Everybody
came
got
in,
that too.
yeah.
I just think there's potential there, I agree with you.
We're just gonna keep an eye on it, and we gotta do some studies and make sure that we.
Then the other issue
A
is,
lot louder than you think.
other issue is where do we stand with the incident up on
Easement.
FPL easement?
Actually, the captain called me today
What incident?
where the kid went off-roading.
We had a kid
A while back.
come off of the Gateway Boulevard onto the FPL easement and then drove into our flowway.
Those $70,000 are worth the damage or so.
So Captain Menora
Okay,
called,
I didn't know.
oh yeah, you want it last name.
No, you voted.
No,
No, she wasn't here.
Month and a
She was
half.
sick.
Oh, okay.
She was here because she voted, I remember.
No,
No, she was sick.
No,
Oh, she was sick, okay.
I was here May 1st.
Sylvia?
Captain
What was it?
Captain
I
Menora
wasn't
called
here.
You missed
Stop
the-
it.
Today, and they had touched base with the parents of that child, and the parent asked if they could try to work it out with us. Captain Benora called me today and asked if I had heard from the mother, which I had not, and I told him, I said, if you talk to her, have her call me. You know, if they want to try to pay for the damages instead of going through the court system, you know, let us know. But I haven't heard anything, and so he was proceeding with the
Direction that we did.
My guess is what they want is they want to negotiate.
Yeah. They want to say, let's just move this rock a little bit this way because they don't understand the concept. of what
Yeah,
they
fel-
are.
felonies are not pretty in the record,
Yeah.
yes.
No, especially if you're 20.
20-year-old moving
Yep. I had something,
to problem.
nothing else. I forgot everything. That was all.
It's hurricane season, prepare yourself.
Okay. Doug, I'll go last, maybe I'll remember.
And I would assume we're gonna be pushing out like what we do for preparedness.
Started
We
to.
did.
Yeah, we have.
We have, yeah.
Yeah.
In Pelican last month about preparedness, Carol's husband organized the meteorologist from, I don't remember what,
Wing.
and she came and did a presentation, and she had excellent slides, excellent slides. I've got we have it on, I guess, YouTube or something, and it's available
Oh, yeah.
if you want to
Push
push
that
that
link out.
It was
Maybe,
really
maybe we
good.
invite them here and come do a.
Yeah, I'm sure they would,
That'd
they
be
love
great.
doing it,
Yeah.
Meteorologist.
but they
You
did
said
a great job.
ABC, Carol?
It's a lady, Allison, somebody, Allison what?
I don't know her name, but
Ray.
Oh.
Allison Ray.
but she really did it, she was well prepared and
She
explained
was.
an awful lot. An excellent presentation.
And then Carol Brocky actually was the one who gave local, so just for Pelican,
Okay.
you know, about peak hurt and some of the other things and what they do and what kind of, what they do at the front gate and all that sort of stuff. So Allison spoke for about 45 minutes and then Carol had about 50.
Awesome. I don't have.
Bob? Okay, so I don't remember all, but I knew the boss, I wrote down. So I know we follow up with all the lights at the roundabout, it's been months, and you said that Paul has reached out to the school. None of the lights, the street lights are working again.
We're on Griffin.
Griffin by the high school, so I know we're having a follow up with that. I know we had an accident across the street from Stony Brook.
Yeah.
We know the,
What happened there?
you just drove
It looked like he was drunk or a skunk.
Okay.
How do you get your car
you
to
got-
mount the,
I
an
Yeah.
SUV mounted the median as you pull into Stony
Try to
Brook?
turn around.
Mounted it, going the wrong direction.
We had
I mean,
one
I saw
fellow-
the damage, and I didn't see.
I saw it right after
We
it
had
happened,
one
I couldn't figure out how the hell it
that took
happened.
down a stop sign.
I will,
He knocked a tree
I'll
down.
follow up with I know we got pictures, we'll follow up with the captain tomorrow.
Yeah, I
To get the report
So
number.
just to get the report so we can file an insurance claim on it.
Yep.
I don't know how much damage.
I know Angelo had gone down there with Mainscape to assess and get quotes on any damages, that way we had something for insurance.
Just so you're aware, I have not been going to our insurance, I've been going to get people's insurance and then been getting full.
I was gonna say, our
payment.
insurance will just go
Yeah,
up.
I've been getting full payment, I'm actually getting quite good at them unfortunately, so yeah. Yeah.
Alright. So then we have that, and
Right to the
then
middle. there was
I
a
did
stop
send
sign.
you an email
Took out the
regarding
pole.
this,
No, inside.
this one regarding parking on the LME over here on this pond. That's something new, I have never seen it before, so So instead of parking on the right of way, they're literally parking 5 feet away from the water's edge at the pond, and I'm talking about 30 cars, not talking about 1 or 2.
Who was this?
When we were having soccer games, I think it was Sundays. I don't remember the day, whatever.
Solved for like 3 months now.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean out here on our pond?
Yes,
Oh,
like, so instead of parking on the right of way, they go inside of the hedge, and they were literally, it looked like a beach. It looked like the boats are in the water, because it was all pickup trucks. They were just all facing, it was like,
facing in toward the pond?
yes.
But they think there
We'll
was
get
gonna
some
be a
really
water
good
show?
trail boulders.
So, yeah, so I just follow up with Lee County Sheriff's Office, because maybe they just didn't know that they need to address that.
When you happen to see that, can you also pay attention to see if the school is being?
It was open, it was not in
Okay.
use.
Okay.
Because that's when I said, because usually if they're closed and I kind of like, it's a
Yeah, yeah,
one-off, they
yeah.
forgot to open, so no big deal. But the school was open, there were probably 10 cars by the school, and everybody else, so I guess they're avoiding the no parking on the right of way, because there's a sign, so they go inside of the hedge between the
On the
lake.
other side of the road.
Yeah, between the lake and the edge, I'm like, okay, that's good. And then, all right, damage to centimeter, oh, and then I have a one-off from you, I don't know what we need from Tony. So Magnolia Lakes would like the relocation of that meter. So do we need an easement? Is that something?
Is that a master meter?
No.
No. Is that
It's-
something
let's-
that,
Let's talk one off, because
Okay.
that's a very unique situation.
okay.
That's the meters all the way from the property and we don't own the line, past the right of way, so.
Okay, so then, can I just put you with the board president and you reach out to him and you work it out with
Have
him?
them email me and I can.
They did, I think they emailed, I think Bill asked to email Vicky, Leslie, so I think they had communication, because I saw a
What's
price.
the board president name?
Dean,
You will imagine.
yeah. Okay, so that's it, that's all I have.
Reconvene.
So.
No.
No.
Motion
Motion
to
to continue.
to continue to 9 AM on Thursday, June
9
12th.
AM.
9
I said
a.m.
9 AM, 9
You
AM,
said p.m.
9 AM, this location.
It sure won't be
All
people.
right, I'll see you all
Is there a
Thursday at
mo- no,
9
you
a.m.
need-
Oh, you need a motion? I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, see you all at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Do our best to get it out ASAP.
Bagels and coffee, please.
Yes.
And-
Whoa!
Bagels and.
Bagels and coffee.